Chapter 1290. After all, Suhua had the same status as him. Naturally, he hoped that Suhua would end up the same as him. This was especially true when he thought about how Suhua and the others had looked down on him and followed Yi Hao. Now, Suhua would be obediently controlled by Yi Hao. It would only be interesting if the Lord could control all these people. Yue suddenly thought. He couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Stop hitting me. I surrender. Spare my life. I surrender too. At that moment, the two alliance masters besieged by the purple gold tiger hurriedly begged for mercy. They were already riddled with injuries from the purple gold tiger's attacks. If this continued, they would probably die at the purple gold tiger's hands. When they saw that Suhua had actually surrendered to Yi Hao, the two of them didn't dare hesitate and hurriedly begged for mercy. The two of them gave up on resisting and knelt on the ground. Roar! The purple gold tiger roared angrily and was about to kill the two of them. Stop! Yi Hao immediately stopped it. He stepped forward and said, "Don't resist." Yi Hao immediately used a secret technique, and two balls of black smoke entered the bodies of the two alliance masters. When the two of them saw the purple gold tiger, they didn't even resist. They allowed the black smoke to enter their bodies and disappear. The three of them, including Suhua, were very confused. After all, Suhua had the same status as him. He naturally hoped that Suhua would end up the same as him. This was especially true when he thought about how Suhua and the others had looked down on him and followed Yi Hao. Now, Suhua would be obediently controlled by Yi Hao. It would only be interesting if the Lord could control all these people. Yue suddenly thought. He couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Stop hitting me. I surrender. Spare my life. I surrender too. At that moment, the two alliance masters besieged by the purple gold tiger hurriedly begged for mercy. They were already riddled with injuries from the purple gold tiger's attacks. If this continued, they would probably die at the purple gold tiger's hands. When they saw that Alliance Master Voidfire had sided with Yi Hao, the two of them didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly spoke. The two of them completely gave up on resisting and knelt on the ground. Roar! The purple golden tiger roared furiously and wanted to kill the two of them. Stop! Yi Hao immediately stopped him. He stepped forward and said, "Don't resist." Yi Hao immediately activated his secret technique, and two balls of black qi surged into their bodies. When the two of them saw that the purple gold tiger was here, they didn't even resist. They allowed the black qi to enter their bodies and then disappear. The three of them, including Suhua, were very confused. After all, Voidfire had the same status as him. Naturally, he hoped that Voidfire's outcome would be the same as his. This was especially true when he thought about how Suhua and the others had looked down on him and decided to follow Yi Hao. Now, the ethereal fire was under Yi Hao's control. It would only be interesting if the Lord could control all of these people. Yue suddenly thought, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Don't hit me. I surrender. Spare my life. I surrender too. At that moment, the two alliance leaders who were being attacked by the purple gold tiger hurriedly begged for mercy. At that moment, they were already covered in wounds from the purple gold tiger's attacks. If this continued, they would probably die at the purple gold tiger's hands. When they saw that alliance leader Suhua had actually surrendered to Yi Hao, the two of them didn't dare to hesitate. They hurriedly spoke. The two of them completely gave up on resisting and knelt on the ground. Roar! The purple gold tiger roared furiously and was about to kill the two of them. Stop! Yi Hao immediately stopped it. He stepped forward and said, "Don't resist." Yi Hao immediately activated his secret technique, and two balls of black qi surged into the two of them. When the two of them saw that the purple gold tiger was here, they didn't even resist. They allowed the black qi to enter their bodies and disappear. The three of them, including Suhua, were very confused at this moment. After all, Suhua's status was the same as his. He naturally hoped that Suhua's outcome would be the same as his. This was especially so when he thought about how Suhua and the others had actually dared to look down on him and follow Yi Hao. Now, Suhua was obediently being controlled by Yi Hao. It would only be interesting if the Lord could control all these people. Yue suddenly thought. He couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Stop hitting me. I surrender. Spare my life. I surrender too. At that moment, the two alliance leaders who were being attacked by the purple gold tiger hurriedly begged for mercy. At that moment, they were already covered in wounds from the purple gold tiger's attacks. If this continued, they would probably die at the purple gold tiger's hands. When they saw that alliance leader Su Hua had actually surrendered to Yi Hao, the two of them didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly spoke up. The two of them completely gave up on resisting and knelt on the ground. Roar! The purple gold tiger roared furiously and was about to kill the two of them. Stop! Yi Hao immediately stopped it. He stepped forward and said, "Don't resist." Yi Hao immediately used a secret technique, and two masses of black smoke entered the bodies of the two alliance leaders. When the two of them saw the purple gold tiger, they simply didn't resist. They allowed the black smoke to enter their bodies and disappear. The three of them, including Su Hua, were very confused at this moment. After all, Su Hua's status was the same as his. He naturally hoped that Su Hua's outcome would be the same as his. This was especially true when he thought about how Su Hua and the others had actually dared to look down on him and follow Yi Hao. Now, Su Hua was obediently being controlled by Yi Hao. It would only be interesting if the Lord could control all these people. Yue suddenly thought. He couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Stop hitting me. I surrender. Spare my life. I surrender too. At that moment, the two alliance leaders who were being attacked by the purple gold tiger hurriedly begged for mercy. At that moment, they were already covered in wounds from the purple gold tiger's attacks. If this continued, they would most likely die at the purple gold tiger's hands. When they saw that alliance leader Su Hua had actually surrendered to Yi Hao, the two of them didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly spoke up. The two of them completely gave up on resisting and knelt on the ground. Roar! The purple gold tiger roared furiously and was about to kill the two of them. Stop! Yi Hao immediately stopped it. He stepped forward and said, "Don't resist." Yi Hao immediately used a secret technique, and two masses of black smoke entered the bodies of the two alliance leaders. Chapter 1292. Shi Hua's expression changed again and again. He had not expected the second prince's men to be so arrogant. This made him very unhappy. After thinking for a while, Shi Hua said, "There are still some things that have not been investigated thoroughly. Therefore, I cannot release him." "What did you say?" Wang Fei frowned when he heard Shi Hua's words. Wang Fei said coldly, "Are you trying to make an enemy out of the second prince?" "Shi Hua, I advise you to know what's good for you. If you anger the second prince, your family will not be able to live in peace." Cheng Chao shouted angrily. His tone was full of threat. "You are threatening me." Shi Hua's expression darkened when he heard Cheng Chao's words. One had to know that his family was his weakness. As an unyielding man, how could he allow others to threaten his family? At this moment, Shi Hua's body emitted a murderous aura. If Wang Fei and Cheng Chao had used the second prince's power to oppress him, he really would have let Cheng Chao go. However, now that Cheng Chao had said this, how could he let Cheng Chao go so easily? Although he did not want to get involved in the disputes between the princes, if he was really forced into a corner, he could always side with the crown prince. Cheng Chao wanted to say something, but when he saw the murderous look in Shi Hua's eyes, he was suddenly at a loss for words. "You really won't let him go?" Wang Fei's expression was ugly. He had not expected this. A mere commander actually dared to disrespect the second prince. "I won't let him go," Shi Hua said firmly. "Well done. I want to see if you can bear the consequences of the second prince's actions," Wang Fei said before he left angrily. "Commander, if you offend the second prince, I'm afraid." A group of guards looked at Shi Hua worriedly as they watched Wang Fei leave angrily. "Keep an eye on him. Don't let him go without my orders. I will be back soon," Shi Hua instructed the guards before he turned and left. "Your Highness, the second prince's men have gone to look for Shi Hua," Zhao Yun said to Xia Haoshuan. Did Shi Hua release them? Xia Haoshuan wasn't surprised at all when he heard Zhao Yun's words. No, the second prince's men left in anger. Zhao Yun replied. Looks like I didn't misjudge you. Get ready to receive the guests. Xia Haoshuan nodded with satisfaction. Receiving guests? What guest? Zhao Yun was also stunned when he heard Xia Haoshuan's words. Your Highness, Commander Shi Linhua requests an audience. Right at this moment, a guard's voice sounded out. Xia Haoshuan also stood up to welcome him. He looked at Shi Linhua and said, What a rare guest, Commander Shi. What brings you here? Shi Linhua was flattered to see Xia Haoshuan standing up to greet him. Greetings, Your Highness. I am here to seek refuge under Your Highness. Shi Linhua spoke his mind directly because he didn't know how to beat around the bush. Haha, since Commander Shi wants to seek refuge under me, I naturally have to give you some gifts. Xia Haoshuan immediately laughed. Your Highness has agreed? Doesn't Your Highness suspect that I have ulterior motives? Shi Linhua couldn't believe that Xia Haoshuan had accepted him so easily. Don't suspect people if you don't use them. I believe in Commander Shi's character, Xia Haoshuan said with a smile. Indeed, he had heard of Shi Linhua before. Shi Linhua was a good person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to recruit him. Moreover, he believed that as long as he treated Shi Linhua sincerely, Shi Linhua would be loyal to him. When Shi Linhua heard Xia Haoshuan's words, he felt a warmth in his heart. His eyes even started to sting. One must know that as a general, their greatest wish was to find a ruler who was filled with trust in them. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Xia Haoshuan's actions. In the past, he might have been unable to seek refuge under Xia Haoshuan because he had offended the second prince. But at this moment, he was absolutely sincere about seeking refuge under Xia Haoshuan. Take this first. Xia Haoshuan took out an elixir pill and handed it to Shi Linhua. This is a meridian turn healing elixir. Shi Linhua looked at the elixir pill in Xia Haoshuan's hand and suddenly felt a little excited. Previously, he was also at the third stage of the meridian turn realm. In the Xia dynasty, he was considered an extraordinary person. Moreover, he was so young and had a promising future. But in a battle, he was seriously injured and his cultivation had regressed to the Khanate turn realm. This was definitely a huge blow to him. In order to heal his injuries, he would need a meridian turn healing elixir. But a meridian turn healing elixir was extremely precious. Even a royal family didn't have many of them. How could they give it to him? Therefore, he reckoned that this was the end of his life. He would be thankful if his cultivation didn't regress, let alone advance. However, when he saw the meridian turn healing elixir handed over by Xia Haoshuan, he felt as if he had seen the hope of life. However, Shi Linhua still hurriedly refused. Your Highness, I am not worthy enough to receive this meridian turn healing elixir. Please take it back. It wasn't that Shi Linhua didn't want this elixir, but that this elixir was really too precious. He really couldn't accept it. I won't take back what I've given. Besides, I have something for you to do. Your current cultivation is too low, Xia Haoshuan said. Now, the war with the Grand Han Kingdom was imminent. The ones that he could use were Zhao Yun and Yin Liang. As for Wu Song and Sun Shangxiang, he could not touch them. Thus, Shi Linhua was definitely a suitable candidate. Thank you, Your Highness. I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire for you in the future. Shi Linhua gratefully accepted the meridian turn healing elixir. How long will it take for you to completely refine this elixir? Xia Haoshuan asked Shi Linhua. Half a month. Shi Linhua replied directly. That's too slow. Xia Haoshuan shook his head. How could there be half a month for Shi Linhua to refine the elixir? Your Highness, if you want me to refine the elixir faster, I'll have to ask a meridian turn realm powerhouse to help me refine it, Shi Linhua said when he heard Xia Haoshuan's words. However, Shi Linhua shook his head. It wouldn't be difficult for the second prince to find a meridian turn realm powerhouse. However, it would be difficult for Xia Haoshuan to find a Xiantian turn realm powerhouse. Zhao Yun, help him refine it, Xia Haoshuan said to Zhao Yun. Yes. Zhao Yun nodded when he heard Xia Haoshuan's words. Chapter 1293. Eat the pill first. I'll help you refine it, Zhao Yun said to Shilinhua. Okay. Although Shilinhua still didn't dare to believe that Zhao Yun was a Lunmai realm expert, he still ate the pill. Because even if Zhao Yun wasn't a Lunmai realm expert, he could still slowly refine the pill. There was no harm to him. At this moment, he couldn't help but wonder if Zhao Yun was a liar. He deliberately tricked Xia Haoshuan by saying that he was a Lunmai realm expert. But before he could think about it, he saw Zhao Yun walk up behind him. Zhao Yun placed his hands on Shilinhua's back, and immediately, a strong spiritual energy flowed into Shilinhua's body. He found the location of the pill and quickly refined it. This really is a Lunmai realm expert. Shilinhua's eyes were shocked. He felt that the strong spiritual energy in his body was definitely not weak. It was dozens of times stronger than his peak spiritual energy in the past. Could it be that the Crown Prince is hiding his strength? Otherwise, why would he have such an expert by his side? And from the looks of it, he is so respectful to the Crown Prince. At this moment, Shilinhua was in his heart. He was constantly guessing. At this moment, Shilinhua couldn't help but feel that Xia Haoshuan was different from the Xia Haoshuan he heard about, because Xia Haoshuan gave him a mysterious feeling. One had to know that the entire Xia dynasty knew that the second prince had many experts under his command, and Xia Haoshuan didn't have anyone under him that he could use. Therefore, many people thought highly of the second prince, but didn't think highly of Xia Haoshuan. But now, it seemed that everyone was probably kept in the dark by Xia Haoshuan. After all, to have a Lunmai realm expert as a subordinate, how strong must he be to be able to do so? If this news were to spread, the whole world would be shocked. At this moment, Shilinhua's heart was like a raging storm, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. Shilinhua couldn't help but feel that the second prince was a little immature in front of Xia Haoshuan. Time slowly passed. After a full 15 minutes, all of the channel-turning pills in Shilinhua's body had finally been completely refined. Gulp, the refining is complete. Shilinhua couldn't help but swallow his saliva. One must know that this was something that should have taken half a month to accomplish. But now, because of Zhao Yun, it was accomplished in 15 minutes. How could he not be shocked? This is definitely a high-level Luin Pulse realm expert. Shilinhua couldn't help but think. Shilinhua was clear that this was a Meridian realm expert. If it was an ordinary Meridian realm expert, it would be impossible for them to achieve such a result. One had to know that none of the pills in his body were wasted. All of them had been refined. The injuries in his body had all healed up. His cultivation base was also recovering. He even had a feeling that he was about to break through. I wonder how this lord compares to Yuan Hotian. In his heart, Shilinhua couldn't help but compare Zhao Yun to Yuan Hotian, because of the fight between Xia Haoshuan and the second prince. His greatest opponent was not the second prince, but Yuan Hotian. However, in Shilinhua's opinion, even if Zhao Yun wasn't as good as Yuan Hotian, he wouldn't be much inferior. If he knew Zhao Yun's true strength, he would definitely be shocked, because Zhao Yun's strength was at the peak of the Luin Pulse realm. It wasn't something that a mere Yuan Hotian could compare to. Commander, sure, now that your injuries have healed, your cultivation base should recover quickly, right? Xia Haoshuan asked Shilinhua. Shilinhua nodded. Although his cultivation base had regressed, he still believed that the foundation of his cultivation base was still there. If he wanted to recover, it would naturally be very fast. Come find me when your cultivation base recovers, Xia Haoshuan said to Shilinhua. Yes, in the blink of an eye, it was already the time for the battle between the two nations. The location of the battle between the two nations was still the central square of Xia's imperial city. At this moment, a large number of spectators had already gathered. However, it seemed that many of them weren't in a good mood. Sigh, there's no need to watch this battle. Our Xia Empire will definitely lose again. I think the loss this time will be even worse than before. It's all that Crown Prince's fault. If it weren't for him, General Yuan Hotian would have made his move. That's right. If General Yuan Hotian had made his move, even if he didn't win, he wouldn't have lost too badly. I really don't understand why His Majesty let the Crown Prince host the battle. As far as the eye could see, everyone was grumbling. They were complaining about why Xia Nantian had handed the battle to Xia Haoshuan, and why Xia Haoshuan had dared to offend Yuan Hotian, causing Yuan Hotian to be so angry that he didn't want to participate in the battle. In everyone's opinion, they clearly believed that it was Yuan Hotian who had taken the initiative to look for Xia Haoshuan and wanted to participate in the battle. However, Xia Haoshuan was narrow-minded and didn't let Yuan Hotian participate. However, the person behind all of this was already smiling widely. In a restaurant, the second prince couldn't help but laugh when he heard the complaints below. "Hi, you all did well. Let's see how that dog made artist Xia lose the battle. Let's see how he's going to deal with it. Your Highness, that dog dug his own grave. Right now, there's no one in the city who isn't complaining about that dog." Yuan Hotian also laughed. After this, that dog's reputation will be ruined. He won't have a chance to make a comeback." The second prince snorted coldly. "Your Highness, General Yuan is here." At this moment, a guard saw a group of people outside and hurriedly said. Everyone immediately turned their gazes to the outside. They saw Xia Haoshuan riding on a majestic white wolf, holding a small white wolf in his arms. Behind him were Zhao Yun, Yin Liang, Shi Linhua, and the others, walking towards the center of the square. Haha, he can't be thinking of relying on this trash to fight the Dahan Kingdom, right? The second prince couldn't help but laugh when he saw the people behind Xia Haoshuan. Yuan Hotian also disdainfully shook his head. This was because they had some understanding of the people behind Xia Haoshuan, Yin Liang, and Shi Linhua. They were all Xiantian cultivators. As for Zhao Yun, although they didn't know him, he was so young. How could he be an expert? Moreover, if Zhao Yun was an expert, it was impossible for him to not have any reputation. Thus, in their view, Zhao Yun was just a nobody. At most, his cultivation was at the Xiantian realm. One must know that the Dahan Kingdom had 3 Luin Pulse experts. If Xia Haoshuan wanted to fight 3 Xiantian cultivators, what else could it be but a joke? After the second prince finished laughing, he couldn't help but want to mock Xia Haoshuan. He directly stood up and said, "Let's go. I'll go meet that dog. The crown prince is here." The people behind him seemed to be Commander Shi. They have some strength. I don't recognize the others. Commander Shi has some strength, but he's only at the Xiantian realm. He's still too inexperienced to fight the Dahan Kingdom. Chapter 1294. Oh my brother, are these repulsive melons and dates going to war with the Grand Han Kingdom? Trash people? In front of everyone. When the second prince saw the people behind Xia Haoshuan discussing, he chuckled as he walked over. The second prince's words weren't polite at all and were full of provocation. Xia Haoshuan didn't even look at the second prince and left with his people, completely ignoring the second prince. Because Xia Haoshuan knew best how to deal with people like the second prince. The more you paid attention to him, the more arrogant he would be. Often, the best way to deal with him was to ignore him. The second prince didn't expect that Xia Haoshuan would dare to not give him face in front of so many people. At this moment, he simply wanted to kill Xia Haoshuan. However, with so many people present, it was absolutely impossible for him to let Xia Haoshuan leave just like that. Otherwise, if word got out, he would lose all face. The second prince rolled his eyes and suppressed the anger in his heart. He smiled and said, "Brother, you can ignore me, but this battle against the Grand Han Kingdom is no small matter. It concerns the face of the Xia dynasty. Let my people go." After saying this, the second prince laughed inwardly. He was indirectly saying that Xia Haoshuan's people weren't as good as him. At the same time, he was belittling Xia Haoshuan and elevating himself. Moreover, it didn't matter whether Xia Haoshuan agreed or not. Either way, it was to his advantage. If Xia Haoshuan agreed, it would prove that Xia Haoshuan's people weren't good enough. Then, as long as they didn't lose too badly in this battle against the Grand Han Kingdom, the credit would go to him. If Xia Haoshuan refused, with Xia Haoshuan's people, it would only make the battle lose even more badly. At that time, Xia Haoshuan would inevitably be criticized by countless people. The second prince is indeed selfless. He's still thinking about the country at this time. The crown prince should put aside his personal grudges and let the second prince's men take action. That's right. Look behind the second prince. General Yuan Hotian is following him. If General Yuan Hotian makes a move, even if we don't win, our Xia won't lose too badly. The second prince's words obviously won the support of many people. Everyone also looked at Xia Haoshuan, waiting for Xia Haoshuan's answer. Xia Haoshuan sneered when he heard the second prince's words. He could tell that the second prince's words were a double-edged sword. No matter how he answered, it would be disadvantageous to him. But would he care? Xia Haoshuan looked at the second prince contemptuously and said, "Your people are trash compared to mine." After Xia Haoshuan finished speaking, he immediately left with his men. He no longer had the intention to bother with the second prince. "What did you say? My people are trash compared to yours? This is the biggest joke in the world. I think you've given up and want to humiliate our Xia dynasty." The second prince heard Xia Haoshuan's words and shouted at Xia Haoshuan's back. Even Yuan Hotian, who was next to the second prince, had a gloomy look on his face. This was because he was the second prince's man. The trash that Xia Haoshuan had just mentioned included him. This guy is too arrogant. Yuan Hotian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. I didn't hear that. The crown prince actually called the second prince's men trash? I think I heard it too. But the second prince has General Yuan Hotian on his side. How can the crown prince compare? The crown prince is too impulsive. Looking at the people behind the crown prince, they don't look like they're strong. I think only Commander Shi Linhua is stronger. Commander Shi Linhua is strong, but he's only in the Khanate realm. I heard that the Dahan Kingdom has sent 3 Luan Pulse Realm fighters this time. He's so strong. It looks like our Xia is bound to lose this time and lose face. If only the crown prince wasn't impulsive and let the second prince's men fight. When everyone heard Xia Haoshuan's words, they were all stunned. Obviously, no one took Xia Haoshuan's words seriously. Everyone thought that Xia Haoshuan was being impulsive. Haha, it's so lively here. At this moment, arrogant laughter was heard. It's the third Prince Han. Everyone looked over. They saw the third Prince Han walking in front with a large group of people following behind him. The most unbearable thing was that the people behind the third Prince Han were all releasing their auras. That terrifying aura was something that ordinary people couldn't withstand. They could only open a path for the third Prince Han. Oh my god, the third Prince Han actually brought Luan Pulse Realm fighters. This is the aura of a Luan Pulse Realm fighter. Oh my god, it's so terrifying. But this third Prince Han is too arrogant. He's simply condescending. Everyone looked at the extremely arrogant third Prince Han. Apart from shock, they were all dissatisfied. When the second prince saw this scene, he frowned. Yuan Hotian's expression also changed slightly. Because from the 3 powerful auras of the Luan Pulse Realm, he felt that one of them wasn't his match, while the other one was on par with him. As for the last one, he felt that it was stronger than him. If he really wanted to fight these 3 people, he would only have full confidence if he fought the first one. Even if he fought the second one, he only had a 50% chance. As for the last one, he didn't have the confidence to win. "Your Highness, let's go first," Yuan Hotian said to the second prince. When the second prince heard Yuan Hotian's words, he was stunned. He didn't expect Yuan Hotian to say such a thing, but he could still see the seriousness in Yuan Hotian's eyes. He nodded and turned to leave. When the third Prince Han saw the second prince turn to leave, his face instantly showed even more disdain. "Ha! The Xia dynasty is only SOSO. After all, even the princes of the Xia dynasty turned to leave when they saw him. This undoubtedly meant that the second prince was avoiding him. It's great to have a Luan Pulse Realm fighter protecting me." The third Prince Han couldn't help but think. At this moment, he couldn't help but think of Xia Haoshuan. If he had brought a Luan Pulse Realm fighter with him at the tavern that day, Xia Haoshuan wouldn't have had the right to be so arrogant. But today he was destined to get back at Xia Haoshuan and see if he still dared to be so arrogant in front of him. Moreover, Today, he was going to ruthlessly trample on the Xia dynasty's face. When the second prince heard the third Prince Han's words, he stopped in his tracks and said, "Humph. If it weren't for the fact that your Han Kingdom's opponent today is the Crown Prince's men, and I don't want to steal the Crown Prince's limelight, my men would definitely have defeated your men." The second prince said this to give himself a way out. He wanted to tell everyone that he wasn't avoiding the third Prince Han, but that he didn't want to steal Xia Haoshuan's limelight. Chapter 1296. Uncle, do you think the Shirlinhua can withstand one move? The second prince smiled as he looked at Yuan Hotian. He's just a clown, unable to withstand a single blow. Yuan Hotian looked at Shirlinhua with disdain. Umph, if you want to blame someone, blame Shirlinhua for courting death. He has eyes but can't see. Instead of relying on me, he went to rely on that trash. The second prince coldly snorted. In his eyes, Shirlinhua was already a dead man. Sai, if I were you, I'd just admit defeat. Isn't that just sending your own people to their deaths? The third Prince Han laughed as he looked at Xia Haoshuan. He wanted to see if Xia Haoshuan could continue to be so arrogant after Shirlinhua was killed. He actually dared to slap his own face. He really didn't know what was good for him. Boom! At this moment, the sound of a collision suddenly rang out. To everyone's surprise, the scene of Shirlinhua being killed did not appear. Instead, it was Sun Wu who actually retreated a few steps. If it wasn't for the fact that the arena was bigger, Sun Wu might have fallen out of the arena. How was this possible? Everyone was in disbelief as they looked at the scene before them. Clearly, they were all astonished. Many people even rubbed their eyes, wondering if they had seen wrongly. You're not a Xiantian realm warrior. You're a Luan Pulse realm warrior. Sun was also shocked. The disdain on his face disappeared as he stared at Shirlinhua and shouted. One had to know that because he had underestimated Shirlinhua, he did not use his full strength and only used 70% of his strength. However, this 70% strength was definitely enough to kill a Luan Pulse realm warrior below stage 3. However, not only did he not kill Shirlinhua, he was actually pushed back by Shirlinhua. This could only mean one thing, that Shirlinhua's strength was above stage 3. But how is this possible? Didn't his investigation say that Shirlinhua was seriously injured and his strength had fallen to the Xiantian realm? But now, how was this falling? This was clearly a huge increase in his cultivation. The third Prince Han's eyes narrowed. He also did not expect this to happen. How can this be? This Shirlinhua, shouldn't he be killed in one blow? How could he? Defeated Sun Wu? The second prince was also shocked at this moment. His face became very ugly as he spoke. Obviously, this was something he didn't want to see. Could it be that this Shirlinhua has been faking it all along, and he wasn't seriously injured? Yuan Hotian said with a frown, because he could see that the strength Shirlinhua used to repel Sun Wu was definitely not lower than the third order of the Luan Meridian realm. If Shirlinhua was really seriously injured, how could his strength have decreased instead of decreasing? If he were to find out that Shirlinhua was indeed seriously injured, but was healed because of the pills he gave him, he wondered if he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Not only had Shirlinhua's cultivation recovered to the third stage of the Meridian Revolution realm, but he had also been given 2 Meridian Revolution breakthrough pills by Xia Haoshuan. Therefore, Shirlinhua's cultivation directly leaped to the 5th level of the Luan Meridian realm. That's strange. How did Shirlinhua become so strong? Fong Tu was shocked and looked at Shirlinhua in surprise. Since he was a member of the military, he had some understanding of Shirlinhua. In his opinion, the original Shirlinhua was definitely a talent with great potential. However, he had been seriously injured and his cultivation had regressed, so he could only leave the army and become a city gate commander. However, in the blink of an eye, Shirlinhua's cultivation hadn't regressed at all. On the contrary, his cultivation had increased greatly. This naturally shocked him. Who said that Commander Shirlinhua was in the Xiantian realm? They even said that he would be killed instantly if he went up. Commander Shirlinhua's strength is at least at the 3rd order of the Luan Meridian realm. Sigh. It seems that rumors can't be trusted. It seems that we have all underestimated Commander Shirlinhua. Who knows? Commander Shirlinhua might actually win. That's not necessarily true. Didn't you see that Sun Wu hasn't used his full strength yet? At this moment, all of the spectators recovered from their shock. Many of them had expressions of pleasant surprise on their faces. Haha, interesting. So what if you have hidden your strength? You will die today. Sun Wu looked at Shirlinhua and laughed maniacally. This time, he stopped underestimating him and took the initiative to attack Shirlinhua. Shirlinhua looked at the charging Sun Wu with a serious expression. He didn't dare underestimate him in the slightest. Although his cultivation had reached the 5th order of the Luan Meridian realm, Sun Wu's strength was at the 6th order of the Luan Meridian realm. His own cultivation level was still 1 order lower than Sun Wu's. The two of them clashed in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the two of them were actually evenly matched. It made people's blood boil when they saw this. Although it seemed that Sun Wu's attack was stronger than Shirlinhua's, Sun Wu's attack was still very strong. However, Shirlinhua seemed to be going all out. After all, Shirlinhua was a soldier who had fought bloody battles in the past. Naturally, his combat experience wasn't lacking. Therefore, even if Shirlinhua's attack was weaker than Sun Wu's, Sun Wu couldn't gain the slightest advantage. Hiss! Suddenly, Sun Wu's weapon slashed across Shirlinhua's body. Blood splattered everywhere. However, what shocked everyone was that Shirlinhua didn't retreat. Instead, he took advantage of the situation to attack. This was a completely suicidal method of fighting. Damn, you're crazy. Sun Wu had originally thought that Shirlinhua would retreat. Then, he would be able to pursue and defeat Shirlinhua. How could he have imagined that Shirlinhua would ignore his injuries and take advantage of the situation to attack him? If he rushed forward again, he might be in danger if he wasn't careful. Sun Wu didn't want to take the risk. He could only curse and retreat. However, Shirlinhua still left a wound on his body. Sun Wu clenched his teeth and left a wound on Shirlinhua's body. However, the wound on Sun Wu's body was obviously bigger than the one on Shirlinhua's body. Haha, awesome. Shirlinhua laughed excitedly, as if he couldn't feel the pain of the 2 wounds on his body. It had to be known that ever since Shirlinhua had been seriously injured, he hadn't fought to his heart's content for a long time. The feeling of fighting now made him experience the feeling of a bloody battlefield once again. Good, not bad. When Xian Nantian saw this, he couldn't help but praise. Commander Shirlinhua is actually so brave and fierce. I feel the blood in my body boiling at this moment. Heavens, this is a real battle. It's so cool to watch. I feel like my heart was about to jump out of my chest. Countless onlookers exclaimed excitedly when they saw Shirlinhua fighting without regard for his life. It was obvious that Shirlinhua's reckless fighting style had ignited their blood. What drug did Xia Haoshuan give him to make him fight without regard for his life? At this moment, the second prince and the third Prince Han's expressions turned ugly when they saw how brave Shirlinhua was. Sun Wu looked at the wounds on his body. At this moment, blood was seeping out of them. The pain made him extremely angry. Chapter 1297. He had never imagined that he would be hurt by someone he looked down on. He had also noticed that the third Prince Han's expression had turned ugly. Therefore, he had to defeat Shirlinhua. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a good life. Actually, with his strength, defeating a Luan Meridian Stage 5 martial artist was a piece of cake. However, Shirlinhua was fighting as if he didn't care about his life. This made him grumble inwardly. Soon, the two of them clashed again. Sun Wu was more cautious this time because he had been at a disadvantage previously. However, who would have thought that the more cautious Sun Wu was, the more desperate Shirlinhua would be? The onlookers shuddered in fear. Many times, they even saw Shirlinhua's head brush past Sun Wu's weapon. Sometimes, Sun Wu's weapon was clearly about to hit Shirlinhua's body. Shirlinhua saw this as an opportunity and didn't retreat at all. Instead, he charged forward bravely. This caused Sun Wu to be unable to do anything to Shirlinhua for a while, causing him to miss numerous opportunities to defeat Shirlinhua. This was entirely because Shi Linhua's attacking style was completely to harm the enemy by injuring himself by 800. If he had fought like Shi Linhua, both he and Shi Linhua would have died miserably. Neither of them would have been able to leave the arena. Moreover, he didn't dare fight like Shi Linhua. Shi Linhua seemed to know that Sun Wu wouldn't dare fight with his life on the line, so he fought bravely. However, in the end, Shi Linhua's cultivation level was one stage lower than Sun Wu's. In the end, he was somewhat powerless and his life was in danger several times. Gradually, Sun Wu gained the upper hand, while Shi Linhua was still fighting with his life on the line. The Xia dynasty admits defeat, Xia Haoshuan said directly at this moment. To be honest, Xia Haoshuan hadn't expected Shi Linhua to defeat Sun Wu from the start. He just didn't want Shi Linhua to lose too embarrassingly. There were 3 rounds in the competition, and he had placed his hopes of victory on Zhao Yun and Yin Liang. As long as Zhao Yun and Yin Liang won, it would be a best of 3 and the Xia dynasty would win. What surprised him was that Shi Linhua's performance did not disappoint him at all. He hadn't expected such a desperate fighting style. This also told him that he hadn't misjudged him. But in the end, there was still a gap between Shi Linhua and Sun Wu. It was already very good that Shi Linhua could fight like this. If he allowed Shi Linhua and Sun Wu to continue fighting, Shi Linhua would risk his life. In his opinion, it was completely unnecessary. Eunuch Qi hurriedly recovered from his shock and announced, "The Grand Han Kingdom wins the first match." Even Eunuch Qi was looking at Shi Linhua with admiration in his eyes. He was completely convinced by Shi Linhua's battle prowess. Although Shi Linhua was defeated this time, no one stood out to criticize him, because everyone could see that Shi Linhua's strength was weaker than Sun Wu's. However, Shi Linhua's current strength was already very good. Just based on Shi Linhua's fighting style, they had no right to criticize Shi Linhua. Sun Wu heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Eunuch Qi's words. Although he had wanted to kill Shi Linhua at the beginning, he had realized that it wouldn't be that easy to kill Shi Linhua later on. Even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. Fortunately, Xia Haoshuan had taken the initiative to admit defeat, so he hadn't lost this match. However, Sun Wu looked at Shi Linhua and said, "Consider yourself lucky, you bastard. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to walk off the stage today." "Then are you sure that you can walk off the stage?" Shi Linhua retorted. You loser," Sun Wu said angrily. Shi Linhua immediately knelt before Xia Nantian and Xia Haoshuan and said, "Your Majesty, please punish me. I have lost this match. My dear subject, you have done well. Go and rest." Xia Nantian looked at Shi Linhua approvingly. Clearly, he was very satisfied with Shi Linhua's performance. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Shi Linhua glanced at Xia Haoshuan and left the stage at Xia Haoshuan's signal. "Oomph. The person you chose isn't that great, brother. He actually lost the first match." The second prince's harsh voice was heard. Everyone frowned when they heard the second prince's words. Obviously, many people had been impressed by Shi Linhua's performance. The second prince's words were obviously meant to blame Shi Linhua. This immediately made many people unhappy. Naturally, the second prince also noticed the dissatisfaction on the faces of many people. He could not help but continue. "I think that Commander Shi should be the most powerful person under my royal brother. Commander Shi's fighting spirit is admirable. However, his strength is indeed a little weak. Furthermore, he has already lost the first round. Won't the next 2 rounds be lost for sure?" The third Prince Han didn't expect the second prince to find trouble with Xia Haoshuan on such an occasion. He couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, the second prince is right. Judging from Commander Shi Linhua's strength, he is probably the strongest person under the crown prince. There should be no mistake. If the strongest person can't even defeat the weakest person, how can they fight the next match? Doesn't that mean that the Xia dynasty will still lose? Not only will they lose, but they will also lose terribly in the next match. Many people started discussing after hearing the second prince's words. Their faces were once again filled with worry. "If I win the next match, what will brother do?" Xiahao Xuan asked directly after hearing the second prince's words. When? Just the two of them? The second prince looked at Zhao Yun and Yin Liang, then smiled disdainfully. It was as if he was certain that Xiahao Xuan would lose the next match. It seems that brother is certain that I won't win. How about we make a bet? Xiahao Xuan looked at the second prince with a smile. All right, I'd like to see what brother wants to bet. The second prince also looked interested. Let's bet all your assets and your personal treasury. Xiahao Xuan said. One must know that even though he was the crown prince now, he was penniless. After all, as the crown prince, whether it was his daily expenses, training his subordinates, or training his personal guards, he needed a large sum of money. Just relying on his monthly salary was obviously not enough. Of course, he also had some assets in the past. Many of them had been swallowed by the second prince, so he naturally wanted the second prince to return double. Chapter 1298. There's no need to activate the formation. Yihao directly refused. After all, this formation could only block magical beasts below the spirit heaven realm. It could not pose the slightest threat to magical beasts of the spirit heaven realm. Although it could block magical beasts below the spirit heaven realm, it could not attack those magical beasts. When magical beasts of the spirit heaven realm appeared, this formation would lose its effect. At that time, the threat of all the magical beasts added together would greatly increase. Therefore, rather than opening the formation, he might as well fight the magical beasts head-on. Moreover, the more magical beasts he killed, the more spirit heaven realm upgrade pills he would obtain. At that time, he would have a higher chance of winning against the magical beasts of the spirit heaven realm. Fortunately, this 100 Emperors city was not a residential city. Therefore, there was no need to arrange for the evacuation of the citizens. What he needed now was to kill the magical beasts and buy time for the supreme Imperial Jade Seal. As long as the Purple Emperor Qi completely transformed, these magical beasts would retreat without a fight. However, the transformation of the Purple Emperor Qi would take at least a few days. And in these few days, it was destined to be a bitter battle. Actually, Yihao was not too worried about dealing with these magical beasts. What he was more worried about was whether the Tianyuan kingdom's promotion to an empire would attract the hatred of some jealous countries. After all, in this world where the strong were respected, sometimes the human heart was so sinister. Even if you did not offend others, others might attack you just because they were unhappy with you. Moreover, this was an empire promotion. It was inevitable that it would attract trouble. Therefore, what Yihao was truly wary of was this matter. If at that time, someone really sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight, if he waited until the critical moment to make a move, he would undoubtedly be attacked from both sides. Roar! Roar! At this moment, the roars of several magical beasts interrupted Yihao's thoughts. Master, it's a group of Atman body realm, trash magical beasts. Suhua glanced and said, Follow me out of the city to kill. He had not planned to guard the city, because in front of those powerful magical beasts, this city was useless, and he was not here to guard the city. Kill! Yihao charged into the horde of beasts. With his current strength, these Atman body-level demonic beasts were no different from trash in his eyes. Thunderstrike! Yihao couldn't wait any longer and immediately activated his spiritual technique. In an instant, the spiritual energy on Yihao's weapon began to transform into the power of lightning. A dazzling bolt of lightning blasted into the horde of beasts. In an instant, more than 10 magical beasts were blasted into nothingness. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. This spiritual technique is indeed powerful. Yihao was delighted when he saw the power of the thunderbolt strike. However, What made Yi Hao speechless was that these magical beast cultivation levels were too low. The difference between them and him was too great. Therefore, the experience points obtained were pitifully little. However, Yi Hao was still very satisfied. This was because he wanted to test out the power of the Thunderbolt Strike. One had to know that he hadn't even displayed the power of the Thunderbolt Strike just a moment ago. Oh my God, the Master used the Thunderbolt Strike just now. How is this possible? Isn't the Thunderbolt Strike the Thunder Supreme Alliance's spiritual technique? How did the Master use it? Isn't the Master's cultivation level at the first level of the spiritual martial realm? Why does he look so powerful? The several major Alliance Masters looked at Yi Hao, all of their faces filled with astonishment. One had to know that with their cultivation levels, they could naturally tell that Yi Hao's cultivation level was only at the first level of the spiritual martial realm. However, the strength that Yi Hao had displayed just now had definitely exceeded the strength of a spiritual martial realm cultivator. One had to know that the people who were the most shocked at this moment were the members of the Thunder Supreme Alliance. This was because they all knew that the Thunderbolt Strike was the spiritual technique of the Thunder Supreme Alliance's Lei family. Only the direct descendants of the Lei family could cultivate it. People like them didn't have the opportunity to cultivate it at all. They could only watch with envy. But now, Yi Hao had used the Thunderbolt Strike. Furthermore, it was in such numbers. How could they not be shocked? Ding dong. Host subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong. Host subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong. Host subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. What's going on? When Yi Hao suddenly heard the system's notification, he was immediately stunned. Immediately after, he thought of something that made him happy. The system really treats me well. I knew it. It can't make me kill so many demonic beasts alone to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill. Yi Hao immediately thought to himself with a smile. He originally thought that he would have to kill enough demonic beasts to meet the system's requirement in order to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill. But now, it seemed that as long as it was his subordinate, the number of demonic beasts they killed would be counted in his account. This could be considered a bit more humane. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, it would be impossible for him to kill so many demonic beasts. Although he wouldn't be able to obtain any experience points if the demonic beasts were killed by others. But to him, this was already considered to be very good. Because right now, what he needed was to kill enough demonic beasts to obtain the system's spiritual heavenly realm level up pill. Only by obtaining enough spiritual heavenly realm level up pills would he be able to solve the problem in front of him. As for increasing his own experience points, he wasn't in a hurry. Moreover, the demonic beasts in front of him were enough for him to kill. Otherwise, if he had to kill all the demonic beasts himself, who knew how long it would take him to kill them all? Scarlet Poplar Slash. Yi Hao roared once again as he activated his spiritual technique and attacked the demonic beasts once more. It's actually the League Master of the Thunder Emperor Alliance's spiritual technique. When everyone saw Yi Hao's spiritual technique, they were shocked once again. Clearly, everyone was curious as to how Yi Hao knew the Thunderbolt Strike and Scarlet Poplar Slash. And the spirit technique that they saw Yi Hao use didn't seem to be something that he had just learned. Instead, it was as if he had been studying for a long time and had already mastered half of it. If he had not personally witnessed Yi Hao killing the Alliance Master of the Grozny Alliance and the Old Man of the Grozny Alliance, he would definitely have died. They were really starting to suspect whether Yi Hao had some sort of relationship with the Grozny Alliance. Ding dong. Host subordinate has killed an Atman body level demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spirit heavenly realm leveling pellet has been reduced by 1. Ding dong. Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. Chapter 1299. There's no need to activate the formation. Yihao directly refused. After all, this formation could only block magical beasts below the spirit heaven realm. It could not pose the slightest threat to magical beasts of the spirit heaven realm. Although it could block magical beasts below the spirit heaven realm, it could not attack those magical beasts. When a magical beast of the spirit heaven realm appeared, this formation would lose its effect. At that time, all the magical beasts together would pose a great threat. Therefore, rather than opening the formation, it was better to fight the magical beasts head-on. Moreover, the more magical beasts he killed, the more spirit heaven realm upgrade pills he would obtain. At that time, he would have a higher chance of winning against the magical beasts of the spirit heaven realm. Fortunately, this 100 Emperors city was not a residential city. Therefore, there was no need to arrange for the evacuation of the citizens. What he needed now was to kill the magical beasts and buy time for the supreme imperial jade seal. As long as the purple Emperor Qi was completely transformed, these magical beasts would retreat without a fight. However, the transformation of the purple Emperor Qi would take at least a few days. And in these few days, it was destined to be a bitter battle. Actually, Yihao was not too worried about dealing with these magical beasts. What he was more worried about was whether the Tianyuan kingdom's promotion to an empire would attract the hatred of some jealous countries. After all, in this world where the strong were respected, sometimes the human heart was so sinister. Even if you did not offend others, others might attack you just because they were unhappy with you. Moreover, this was an empire promotion. It would inevitably attract trouble. Therefore, what Yihao was truly wary of was this matter. At that time, there might really be people who would sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. If he waited until the critical moment to make a move, he would undoubtedly be attacked from both sides. Roar! Roar! At this moment, the roars of several magical beasts interrupted Yihao's thoughts. Master, it's a group of Atman body realm, trash magical beasts. Suhua glanced and said, "Follow me out of the city to kill." Yihao did not plan to guard the city, because in front of those powerful magical beasts, this city was useless. And he was not here to guard the city. Kill! Yihao charged into the horde of beasts. With his current strength, these Atman body-level demonic beasts were no different from trash in his eyes. Thunderstrike! Yihao couldn't wait any longer and immediately activated his spiritual technique. In an instant, the spiritual energy on Yihao's weapon began to transform into the power of lightning. A dazzling bolt of lightning blasted into the horde of beasts. In an instant, more than 10 magical beasts were blasted into nothingness. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to host for slaying an Atman body-level demonic beast. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 experience points. This spiritual technique is indeed powerful. Yihao was delighted when he saw the power of the thunderbolt strike. However, what made Yihao speechless was that these magical beast cultivation levels were too low. The difference between them and him was too great. Therefore, the experience points obtained were pitifully little. However, Yihao was still very satisfied. This was because he wanted to test out the power of the thunderbolt strike. One had to know that he hadn't even displayed the power of the thunderbolt strike just a moment ago. Oh my God, the master used the thunderbolt strike just now. How is that possible? Isn't the thunderbolt strike the Thunder Supreme Alliance's spiritual technique? How did the master use it? Isn't the master's cultivation level at the first level of the spiritual martial realm? Why does he look so powerful? The several major alliance masters looked at Yihao, all of their faces filled with astonishment. One had to know that with their cultivation levels, they could naturally tell that Yihao's cultivation level was only at the first level of the spiritual martial realm. However, the strength that Yi Hao had displayed just now had definitely exceeded the strength of a spiritual martial realm cultivator. One had to know that the people who were the most shocked at this moment were the members of the Thunder Supreme Alliance. This was because they all knew that the Thunderbolt Strike was the spiritual technique of the Thunder Supreme Alliance's Lei family. Only the direct descendants of the Lei family could cultivate it. People like them didn't have the opportunity to cultivate it at all. They could only watch with envy. But now, Yi Hao had used the Thunderbolt Strike. Furthermore, it was in such numbers. How could they not be shocked? Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. What's going on? Yi Hao was stunned when he suddenly heard the system's notification. Then, he thought of something and couldn't help but feel happy. The system really treats me well. But now, Yi Hao had used the Thunderbolt Strike. Furthermore, it was in such numbers. How could they not be shocked? Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. What's going on? Yi Hao was stunned when he heard the system's notification. Then, he thought of something and couldn't help but feel happy. The system is really good. But now, Yi Hao had used the Thunderbolt Strike. Furthermore, it was in such numbers. How could they not be shocked? Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. Ding dong, the host's subordinate has killed an Atman body realm demonic beast. The required number of demonic beasts to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill has been reduced by 1. What's going on? Yi Hao was stunned when he heard the system's notification. Then, he thought of something and couldn't help but feel happy. The system is really good to me. Then, he thought of something and couldn't help but feel happy. The system is really good to me. Didn't I say it wouldn't let me kill so many demonic beasts alone to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill? Yi Hao immediately thought with a smile. He originally thought that he would have to kill enough demonic beasts to meet the system's requirement in order to obtain the spiritual heavenly realm level up pill. But now, it seemed that as long as it was his subordinate, the number of demonic beasts killed would be counted as his. Chapter 1300. Father, Yin Liang is enough, Xia Haoshuan said confidently to Xia Nantian. As soon as Xia Haoshuan finished speaking, Yin Liang took a big step forward and rushed into the arena. It's over, it's completely over. Everyone saw Yin Liang rush into the arena. Everyone's expression became unsightly, because once Yin Liang got into the arena, it was too late to change the contestant even if the match started. At this moment, the third Prince Han and the second prince were already smiling. One was happy because he got the 3 counties, and the other was happy because Xia Haoshuan was about to be consigned to eternal damnation. Xia Nanshan's face stiffened. He did not expect Yin Liang to be so impulsive. Trash that's courting death. Seeing Yin Liang rushing over, Deng Hu said disdainfully. Then, he slashed at Yin Liang with his sword. Although he knew that Yin Liang was a Khanate warrior, he did not have the slightest bit of carelessness. Instead, he used all of his strength. Throat slit. Deng, who directly used his strongest martial arts technique, determined to kill Yin Liang in one fell swoop. This Deng who is really cautious. He doesn't need to use martial arts techniques to deal with a Khanate warrior trash. The third Prince Han saw this scene and could not help but laugh. The faces of all the people from Xia Kingdom turned even uglier. No one expected Deng Hu to use martial arts techniques when he was already so strong. Wasn't he not giving Yin Liang the slightest chance of survival? It's over. This Yin Liang is dead. This time Xia is going to lose. He deserves to die. Who asked him to be so weak? Why did he have to pretend to be strong? Sigh. It's a pity that Xia's 3 counties are all gone. This time, the 8 counties of Nanzhou are all gone. Everyone saw this scene. Some people complained, while others sighed. Insignificant skill. At this moment, Yin Liang let out a soft shout. The broadsword in his hand slashed straight at Tiger Lord. When everyone saw this scene, they shook their heads and said, "That's right." But in the next second, everyone's eyes widened. The moment Yin Liang's saber descended, an incomparably terrifying power burst forth. The surrounding air actually whistled under the attack of this saber. In the eyes of the crowd, this saber strike that they had disdained seemed to have undergone a qualitative change at this moment. At that very moment, the saber seemed as if it was going to slice through the heavens. At this moment, there was nothing else in everyone's eyes but this saber. Before everyone's eyes, this blade descended at an extremely slow speed. However, it was completed in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! Yin Liang's broadsword directly cut Tiger Lord's body. What bullsh *T, one sword marquee. Before Yin Liang's saber strike, he simply could not withstand a single blow. Bang! Tiger Lord's body was directly split into 2 and smashed into the ring. His blood directly dyed the ring red. When everyone saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were all extremely shocked. Obviously, no one would have thought that Yin Liang's strength would be so terrifying. Even Tiger Lord, who was at Luan Pulse Realm Stage 7, could be killed in one move. In their opinion, shouldn't Yin Liang be killed by Tiger Lord? Oh my god, this Yin Liang is so powerful. He can actually kill a Luan Pulse Realm Stage 7 expert. How did His Highness the Crown Prince obtain such a powerful subordinate? With such terrifying strength, we actually looked down on him in the beginning. It's really a sin. Haha, doesn't this mean that I Xia have won a round of the competition? Good job, Lord Yin Liang. All the spectators, after the shock, were all discussing excitedly. How is this possible? This dog, how could he have the strength to kill Tiger Lord? The second prince looked at Yin Liang in the ring, and his face became very ugly. He instantly felt a trace of threat. After all, he had always thought that Yin Liang was only at the Xiantian realm, so he did not put Yin Liang in his eyes. However, the strength that Yin Liang revealed at this moment was enough to contend with Yuan Hotian. At this moment, Yuan Hotian's face became gloomy and cold as he looked at Yin Liang with a trace of fear. Oh my god, when did His Highness have such a powerful subordinate? Fierce Tiger Lord could not help but exclaim. It seems that His Highness still has a lot of secrets. I didn't expect him to have such a big trump card. Fong Tu looked at Xia Haoshuan with a trace of curiosity in his eyes. At the same time, he had a feeling that this time, he had made the right bet. Wang Xingyu's face was also full of shock, but at the same time, there was a trace of relief in his eyes. After all, he had placed all his hopes on Xia Haoshuan. Of course, he hoped that Xia Haoshuan would be as strong as possible. He actually won. Xian Antian looked at Yin Liang and Tiger Lord's corpse in the ring, and his face was full of disbelief. He was not optimistic about Yin Liang, but he did not expect. Yin Liang was actually able to kill Tiger Lord in one move. Xian Antian looked at Xia Haoshuan and found that Xia Haoshuan did not have any expression of surprise, as if he had already expected this. Xian Antian looked at the many grand elders and found that many of them were also full of shock. Then, he was delighted. little Xian really did not disappoint me. A piece of trash dares to clamor in my xia. Acting recklessly, Yin Liang looked at the corpse on the ground and snorted disdainfully. Then, he walked towards Xia Haoshuan. Oh my God, so cool. When everyone heard Yin Liang's words, they all looked at Yin Liang with a face of worship. If Yin Liang had said this before, he would have been ridiculed. After all, Tiger Lord was a Luan Pole Stage 7 expert. But now that Yin Liang had killed Tiger Lord in one move, no one dared to question Yin Liang's strength. Instead, their minds were filled with the shocking scene of Yin Liang's domineering blade killing Tiger Lord. When they thought about how arrogant Tiger Lord had been at the start, they couldn't help but feel elated. You actually killed a member of the Dahan, the third Prince Han said through gritted teeth as he looked at Yin Liang and Xia Haoshuan with an ashen face. He was too much a piece of trash. He couldn't even withstand one move from me. Yin Liang retorted immediately when he saw the third Prince Han's angry expression. Good, very good. I didn't think that the Xia would still have a trump card up its sleeve. When he heard Yin Liang's words, the third Prince Han was so angry that he started laughing. Clearly, in his opinion, the Xia dynasty had deliberately concealed Yin Liang's strength. Otherwise, how could he have investigated the Xia dynasty in the beginning without finding any information about Yin Liang? The third Prince Han felt as if he had been cheated. Furthermore, watching his subordinates get killed made him very unhappy, especially when he saw the excited expressions on the faces of the citizens of the great Xia dynasty. He felt even more displeased. After all, his purpose in coming to the Xia, besides seeking resources, was to humiliate the Xia. Chapter 1301. Father, Yin Liang is enough, Xia Haoshuan said confidently to Xia Nantian. As soon as Xia Haoshuan finished speaking, Yin Liang took a big step forward and rushed into the arena. It's over, it's completely over. Everyone saw Yin Liang rush into the arena. Everyone's expression became unsightly, because once Yin Liang got into the arena, it was too late to change the contestant even if the match started. At this moment, the third Prince Han and the second prince were already smiling. One was happy because he got the 3 counties, and the other was happy because Xia Haoshuan was about to be consigned to eternal damnation. Xia Nanshan's face stiffened. He did not expect Yin Liang to be so impulsive. Trash that's courting death. Seeing Yin Liang rushing over, Deng Hu said disdainfully. Then, he slashed at Yin Liang with his sword. Although he knew that Yin Liang was a Khanate warrior, he did not have the slightest bit of carelessness. Instead, he used all of his strength. Throat slit. Deng Hu directly used his strongest martial arts technique, determined to kill Yin Liang in one fell swoop. This Deng Hu is really cautious. He doesn't need to use martial arts techniques to deal with a Khanate warrior trash. The third Prince Han saw this scene and could not help but laugh. The faces of all the people from Xia Kingdom turned even uglier. No one expected Deng Hu to use martial arts techniques when he was already so strong. Wasn't he not giving Yin Liang the slightest chance of survival? It's over. This Yin Liang is dead. This time, the Xia is going to lose. He deserves to die. Who asked him to be so weak? Why do you have to pretend to be strong? Sigh, it's a pity that the Xia's 3 counties are all gone. This time, the 8 counties of Nanzhou are all gone. Everyone saw this scene. Some people complained, while others sighed. Insignificant skill. At this moment, Yin Liang let out a soft shout. The broadsword in his hand slashed straight at Tiger Lord. When everyone saw this scene, they shook their heads and said, "That's right." But in the next second, everyone's eyes widened. The moment Yin Liang's broadsword fell, it suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying power. The surrounding air actually whistled under the attack of this saber. In the eyes of the crowd, this saber strike that was originally disdainful seemed to have undergone a qualitative change at this moment. At this moment, this broadsword seemed like it was going to cut through the sky. At this moment, everyone's broadsword was the only thing in their eyes. Before everyone's eyes, this blade descended at an extremely slow speed. However, it was completed in the blink of an eye. Slash! Yin Liang's broadsword directly cut through Deng Hu's body. What bullsh asterisk T, one sword marquee. Before Yin Liang's saber strike, he simply could not withstand a single blow. Bang! Tiger Lord's body was directly split into two and smashed into the ring. His blood directly dyed the ring red. SSS. When everyone saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Each and every one of them was extremely shocked. Obviously, no one would have thought that Yin Liang's strength would be so terrifying. Even Deng Hu, who was at Luan Pulse Realm Stage 7, was killed in one move. In their opinion, shouldn't Yin Liang be killed by Deng Hu? Oh my god, this Yin Liang is so powerful. He can actually kill a Luan Pulse Realm Stage 7 expert. How did the Crown Prince get such a powerful subordinate? With such terrifying strength, we actually look down on him. It's really a sin. Haha, doesn't this mean that I won a round of the competition? Good job, Lord Yin Liang. All the spectators were discussing excitedly after the shock. How is this possible? This dog, how can he have the strength to kill Deng Hu? The second prince looked at Yin Liang in the arena. His face turned ugly. He instantly felt a trace of threat. After all, he always thought that Yin Liang was only at the Xiantian realm, so he did not put Yin Liang in his eyes. But the strength that Yin Liang revealed now was enough to fight against Yuan Hotian. At this moment, Yuan Hotian's face turned cold as he looked at Yin Liang with a trace of fear. Oh my god, when did His Highness have such a powerful subordinate? Fierce Tiger King could not help but exclaim. It seems that His Highness still has many secrets. I didn't think that he would have such a big trump card. Fong Tu looked at Xia Haoshuan with a trace of curiosity. At the same time, he had a feeling that this time, he had made the right bet. Wang Xingyu was also shocked, but at the same time, there was a trace of relief in his eyes. After all, he had placed all his hopes on Xia Haoshuan. Of course, he hoped that Xia Haoshuan would be as strong as possible. He actually won. Xian Antian looked at Yin Liang and Deng Hu's corpse in the arena. His face was full of disbelief. He was not optimistic about Yin Liang, but he did not expect. Yin Liang could actually kill Deng Hu in one move. Xian Antian looked at Xia Haoshuan and found that Xia Haoshuan did not look surprised, as if he had already expected this. Xian Antian looked at the many grand elders and found that they were also full of shock. Then, he was delighted. Little Xian really did not disappoint me. A piece of trash dares to clamor in my Xia. You don't know what's good for you. Yin Liang looked at the corpse on the ground and snorted disdainfully. Then, he walked towards Xia Haoshuan. Oh my god, so cool. When everyone heard Yin Liang's words, they all looked at Yin Liang with admiration. If Yin Liang had said this before, he would have been ridiculed. After all, Deng Hu was a Luan Pulse Stage 7 expert. But at this moment, Yin Liang killed Deng Hu in one move. No one dared to question Yin Liang's strength. Instead, their minds were filled with the shocking scene of Yin Liang's domineering blade killing Deng Hu. When they thought about how arrogant Deng Hu had been at the start, they couldn't help but feel elated. You actually killed a member of the Dahan, the third Prince Han said through gritted teeth as he looked at Yin Liang and Xia Haoshuan. He was too much of a piece of trash. Who asked him to not even be able to withstand one move from me? Yin Liang retorted when he saw the third Prince Han's angry expression. Good, very good. I didn't think that the Xia would still have a trump card up its sleeve. When he heard Yin Liang's words, the third Prince Han was so angry that he started laughing. Clearly, in his opinion, the Xia dynasty had deliberately concealed Yin Liang's strength. Otherwise, how could he have investigated the Xia dynasty in the beginning without finding any information about Yin Liang? The third Prince Han felt as if he had been cheated. Furthermore, watching his subordinates get killed made him very unhappy, especially when he saw the excited expressions on the faces of the citizens of the great Xia dynasty. He felt even more displeased. After all, his purpose in coming to the Xia, besides seeking resources, was to humiliate the Xia. Chapter 1302. Wait a moment. Discuss the compensation with the Grand Han. This matter is of great importance. It's not appropriate for your highness to discuss it alone. At this moment, one of the officials spoke up under the second prince's signal. That's right. I think His Majesty should send someone to discuss this matter with the third Prince Han. Your Highness, it's indeed inappropriate for you to act on your own. One after another, many ministers stepped forward and spoke. Seeing this, the second prince felt a little better. After all, Xiao Haoshuan was constantly in the limelight, which made him very unhappy. Moreover, discussing the compensation with the Grand Han Kingdom was a great merit. If he could seize such a good opportunity, it would naturally be very beneficial to him. Naturally, he didn't want to give this opportunity to Xiao Haoshuan, a bunch of clowns who only know how to take off their pants and fart after the event. Then tell me, if I'm not suitable to discuss it, who's suitable to discuss it? Xiao Haoshuan's face darkened when he heard the official's words. He didn't give them any face and sneered. Xiao Haoshuan naturally didn't care about these lackeys of the second prince. After all, those who jumped out at this time were trash who didn't have any ability and were used as tools by the second prince. Your Highness is right. Your Highness won the competition. Naturally, Your Highness should be the one to discuss it. These people are too good at snatching credit. What right do they have to compete with Your Highness? Preposterous. These people shrank to the back and fought for credit. They jumped out instead. Xiao Haoshuan's words were naturally met with a chorus of agreement. Clearly, Xiao Haoshuan's victory over the Grand Han had won many people's hearts. Your Highness, those who spoke had ugly expressions. Because Xiao Haoshuan's words didn't give them any face at all, they felt very embarrassed to be criticized in front of so many people. What's wrong? What bullshit do you have? Hurry up and spit it out. This Highness doesn't have that much time to waste with you all. Xiao Haoshuan did not place these people in his eyes at all. Your Highness Crown Prince, although your contributions in this battle cannot go unnoticed, you have no experience in negotiations. On the other hand, His Highness has discussed compensation with the Grand Han Kingdom several times. In my opinion, His Highness is more experienced. Why don't we let His Highness go? One of them had an extremely unsightly expression, but he still gritted his teeth and spoke. That's right, that's right. That makes sense. It is indeed more appropriate for the second prince to go. As soon as this person finished speaking, many of the second prince's subordinates naturally agreed. Haha, let's not talk about the fact that he can only negotiate and compensate others with resources. Don't say that this Highness is overbearing and wants to snatch the credit. Very well, this Highness will give him a chance. As long as his people defeat Zhao Yun, this Highness will give him the right to participate in this discussion. Xiao Haoshuan sneered. When the second prince and the others heard Xiao Haoshuan's words, the corners of their mouths twitched involuntarily and their expressions became extremely unsightly. What kind of joke was this? They had all seen how powerful Zhao Yun was. Even Yuan Hot-Eon couldn't defeat Zhao Yun. Who else among them could be a match for Zhao Yun? Xiao Haoshuan gave this opportunity to the second prince after he heard that he had to defeat Zhao Yun. The second prince wanted to give up, but he was very unwilling in his heart, because this merit was simply a huge pie in the sky. What's wrong, General Yuan Hot-Eon? Are you interested in giving Zhao Yun some pointers? Xiao Haoshuan asked Yuan Hot-Eon. When they heard Xiao Haoshuan's words, everyone looked expectantly at Yuan Hot-Eon. Heavens, the Crown Prince is directly provoking General Yuan Hot-Eon. I wonder if General Yuan Hot-Eon will accept the challenge. I think it's a little difficult. Although General Yuan Hot-Eon is valiant, he's still lacking compared to Lord Zhao Yun. Everyone was very curious as to what exactly Yuan Hot-Eon would do. After all, Yuan Hot-Eon's reputation was extremely high in the Xia dynasty. His ability was valiant, and he controlled the Hot-Eon army. The current Yuan Hot-Eon could be said to be like the midday sun. In the past, if someone had said that they wanted to challenge Yuan Hot-Eon, they would definitely have been mercilessly mocked. However, when they heard that Zhao Yun wanted to challenge Yuan Hot-Eon, everyone couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat on his behalf. After all, many people knew that Yuan Hot-Eon's cultivation base was only at the 7th stage of the Lewin Meridian realm. He simply couldn't compare to Yulong. However, if Zhao Yun could easily kill Yulong, then what problem would killing Yuan Hotian have? I'll give you some pointers, my ass. If I fight him, it would be strange if I didn't have a death wish. Yuan Hotian's expression turned ugly as he couldn't help but roar inwardly. Xia Haoshuan was blatantly provoking him. Given his temperament, he would definitely agree. However, after seeing Zhao Yun kill Yulong, he really didn't have the guts to agree. However, if he refused in front of so many people, it would be equivalent to him showing weakness. It would definitely damage his own prestige. This made Yuan Hotian have the urge to kill Xia Haoshuan. What kind of status does Lord Yuan Hotian have? How can a nobody like him challenge him? When the second prince saw that Yuan Hotian was in a difficult position, he immediately stepped forward and spoke out. In his opinion, although Zhao Yun was valiant, his status couldn't compare to Yuan Hotian's. Therefore, he could use his status to suppress Zhao Yun. Your Highness is right. What kind of status does General Yuan Hotian have? How can any Tom, Dick, or Harry be a match for him? That Zhao Yun wants to rely on his valiant strength to challenge General Yuan Hotian. He's simply arrogant and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If you want to challenge General Yuan Hotian, wait until your status is high enough. When the second prince's people heard the second prince's words, they all quickly echoed and mocked Zhao Yun. However, they seem to have forgotten that at this very moment, Zhao Yun was the hero who defeated the Dahan. Therefore, when the countless onlookers heard the second prince and the others insult the hero in their hearts, all of them were instantly enraged. How preposterous! How dare they talk about Lord Zhao Yun like that? Although Lord Zhao Yun doesn't have an official position now, he can't be compared to any Tom, Dick, or Harry. With Lord Zhao Yun's strength, if he wants to become a general of the Xia, he must have an extraordinary status. A bunch of trash. How dare you talk about my people? However, now that you've mentioned this, you've reminded me. When Xia Haoshuan heard the second prince and the others, he wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed. Under the confused gazes of the crowd, Xia Haoshuan looked at Xia Nantian and said, "Father, Zhao Yun is willing to serve to Xia. Father, please grant him an official position." Clearly, they all knew that Xia Nantian wouldn't give Zhao Yun too high a position, but it obviously wouldn't be too low either. However, they had never imagined that Xia Nantian would actually give Zhao Yun such a high position. This caused the faces of Yuan Hotian and the others to become unsightly, especially Yuan Hotian. His face became the color of pig liver. What kind of joke was this? He had fought bloody battles on the battlefield for a decade or two before he climbed to his current position as Legion Commander, and Zhao Yun was promoted to Legion Commander right off the bat. How would he accept this? The second prince's expression was also very unsightly. If Zhao Yun really became the Legion Commander, he would definitely be defeated. If Zhao Yun really became Legion Commander, wouldn't that mean that Xia Haoshuan also had an army behind him? This was definitely a huge threat to him. To be honest, even Xia Haoshuan himself was surprised. Clearly, he didn't expect Xia Nantian to be so generous as to directly give Zhao Yun the position of Legion Commander. One must know that this was definitely a precedent in the history of the Xia dynasty. However, no one had ever been able to become a Legion Commander right after entering the army. Originally, Xia Haoshuan thought that it was already very good for Zhao Yun to be able to obtain the position of a major. It seems like Imperial Father thinks highly of Zhao Yun. That's why he gave him such a high position in order to rope him in. Xia Haoshuan immediately understood what was going on. Actually, Xia Haoshuan's guess wasn't accurate. Of course, on one hand, Xia Nantian had taken a fancy to Zhao Yun's strength. On the other hand, Xia Nantian was still brooding over the fact that he had chased Zhao Yun out of the palace and out of the royal family. Therefore, giving Zhao Yun such a high position was considered a form of compensation. After all, Zhao Yun was Xia Haoshuan's subordinate. "Thank you, Your Majesty. This humble subject dares not have any objections. Zhao Yun said respectfully as he quickly knelt down at Xia Haoshuan's signal. Your Majesty, you mustn't do this. What ability does he have to deserve the position of Legion Commander? Please reconsider, Your Majesty. We implore Your Majesty to retract your order. Isn't it very inappropriate to directly give him the position of Legion Commander? The second prince's subordinates all panicked when they heard Xia Nanshan's words and hurriedly tried to dissuade him. What kind of joke was this? Many of them had pledged allegiance to the second prince. Most of them had done so because of Yuan Hotian. In their opinion, with Yuan Hotian's support, the second prince had a very high chance of ascending to the throne. Xia Haoshuan's biggest weakness was that he didn't have the support of the military. If Zhao Yun were to become Legion Commander, it would definitely be a huge threat to them. This was because Xia Haoshuan would be able to stand up to the second prince as an equal. Your Majesty, isn't this a little inappropriate? Yuan Hotian couldn't hold on any longer and spoke up directly. Zhao Yun's strength was stronger than his, and he already felt threatened enough. If even Zhao Yun's position was equal to his, then he wouldn't be able to continue living. Therefore, he had to make Xian Nantian retract his order. Father, isn't giving Zhao Yun the position of Legion Commander a little too much? Why don't you give him the position of Major first? The second prince also hurriedly spoke up. I've made up my mind. Xian Nantian had naturally expected that the second prince and Yuan Hotian would refuse, so he was already prepared and spoke in a firm tone. In fact, he had given Zhao Yun the position of Legion Commander to compensate Xia Haoshuan, and also because he thought highly of Zhao Yun. However, there was no need to give Zhao Yun the position of Legion Commander so quickly. The reason he had given Zhao Yun the position of Legion Commander so quickly was because he was already wary of Yuan Hotian and was dissatisfied with him. Therefore, he wanted to use Zhao Yun to stand up to Yuan Hotian and suppress him. It was obvious that Yuan Hotian was becoming more and more arrogant. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to make such a request when he allowed him to participate in the competition. It wasn't that he didn't want to directly remove Yuan Hotian, but Yuan Hotian had too many henchmen in the Hotian Corps, and his position was deeply rooted. If he didn't have a solid reason to remove him, it would definitely cause chaos. Chapter 1305. Obviously, they did not expect Yuan Hotian to be so bold as to say such a thing. He directly went to the 5 Grand Elders and asked them to stop Xian Nantian. Wasn't this provoking Xian Nantian? Was he not putting Xian Nantian in his eyes? How dare you, Yuan Hotian? Do you still have me in your eyes? Xian Nanshan's face was ashen as he roared. Your Majesty, please calm down. Everyone was shocked when they saw Xian Nantian angry and quickly tried to calm him down. Uncle, the second prince, was also shocked. He did not expect Yuan Hotian to be so reckless today. He could not help but remind him in a low voice. Your Majesty, please forgive me. How could I not have Your Majesty in my eyes? It's just that I am a little unwilling. I joined the army at the age of 16 and served as Xia. Since then, I have fought countless battles on the battlefield and experienced countless battles before I became the current Legion Commander of the Hotian Corps. The scars on my body are proof. As Yuan Hotian spoke, he took off his armor. And what qualifications does he have to be the Legion Commander of the Nanzhou Corps? In an instant, dozens of scars of various sizes were revealed on Yuan Hotian's body. Hiss! Everyone could not help but gasp when they saw the scars on Yuan Hotian's body. It was obvious that Yuan Hotian's injuries were severe. General Yuan, you've really suffered a lot for the sake of Great Xia. General Yuan has worked hard to achieve his current position. He is worthy of his name. General Yuan is worthy of being Xia's pillar of support. He deserves to be the Legion Commander. We are convinced. Unlike some people who have not even been on the battlefield and want to be the Legion Commander. Suddenly, many people began to complain. Obviously, many people did not want to see Zhao Yun become the Legion Commander of the Nanzhou Corps, because they were all on the second prince's side. If Zhao Yun became the Legion Commander, it would inevitably affect their interests and pose a threat to them. Therefore, They naturally did not want to see Zhao Yun become the Legion commander. Yuan Hotian was very satisfied when he heard the discussions around him. He didn't believe that Xian Nantian would still be so stubborn after he had said so much. If Xian Nantian was really stubborn, it would undoubtedly hurt many people's hearts. The second prince's eyes lit up when he saw the scars on Yuan Hotian's body, and a smile on his face. He had to admit that the older, the wiser. When Xian Nantian saw this scene, he frowned. What he was most worried about. However, this also made him even more dissatisfied with Yuan Hotian, because this Yuan Hotian relied on his own hard work to become more and more arrogant, and became more and more arrogant because of the favor he received. Yuan Hotian was obviously using the scars on his body to remind him that he had contributed greatly to Great Xia, which was why he had obtained the position of Legion General. If he insisted, he'd give him the titles to make Zhao Yun to become the No. This Yuan Hotian was trying to force him to take back his words. However, as the Emperor of the Xia, if he was forced to take back his order by Yuan Hotian, his prestige would be damaged. Therefore, Xian Nantian naturally would not take back his order so easily. Furthermore, Yuan Hotian was now in the limelight among the various legions. This made Yuan Hotian even more arrogant and arrogant. This made him somewhat wary of Yuan Hotian. Therefore, he also wanted to suppress Yuan Hotian. If Zhao Yun was also the Legion commander, he could make Yuan Hotian and Zhao Yun confront each other and prevent Yuan Hotian from acting rashly. Of course, I know that Minister Yuan has worked hard and performed a great service. However, how can I go back on my word? Could it be that Minister Yuan wants me to break my promise to the world? Xian Nantian asked Yuan Hotian directly. This was equivalent to directly handing the problem to Yuan Hotian. He wanted to see how Yuan Hotian would handle it. Yuan Hotian had the urge to curse inwardly. He had not expected Xian Nantian to be so cunning. He had thought that by showing his injuries, Xian Nantian would take back his order. Who would have thought that Xian Nantian would use his word as an excuse and throw the problem back to him? Since Xian Nantian had already said so, Yuan Hotian did not dare to ask Xian Nantian to take back his order. Otherwise, he would be accused of going back on his word, and Yuan Hotian would be blamed for it. Although he was a little arrogant and thought that Xian Nantian would not dare to do anything to him, he did not dare to fall out with Xian Nantian. If he really angered Xian Nantian, he would not have a good ending. Although the current Nanzhou Legion was only in name and had been crippled a few decades ago, it was the weakest legion in the Great Xia Empire. But he was still unwilling to hand over the Nanzhou army to Zhao Yun. This was because he had been eyeing the Nanzhou army for a long time. He had long wanted to take the Nanzhou army under his command, but the time was not right. If he really took the South Continent army under his command, his status and power would rise to a whole new level. But now, someone had come out of nowhere and handed the Nanzhou army over to Zhao Yun. How could he be willing to accept this? But since Xian Nantian had already said so, Yuan Hotian could no longer resist. A cunning look appeared in Yuan Hotian's eyes. He cupped his fists and said, "This general agrees with your majesty's decision." Did I hear wrongly? General Yuan actually agreed? How could this be? Everyone was stunned when they heard Yuan Hotian's words. They did not understand why Yuan Hotian would suddenly agree. Then their previous objections would have been in vain. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. They were afraid that they had heard wrongly and looked at Yuan Hotian. Xian Nantian looked at Yuan Hotian. He was not in a hurry to speak. Based on his understanding of Yuan Hotian would definitely not give up so easily. Therefore, Yuan Hotian must have something else to say. He wanted to see what other tricks Yuan Hotian had up his sleeve. The second prince looked anxious. He wanted to persuade Yuan Hotian. He really thought that Yuan Hotian had compromised, but he could not say it directly in this situation. Therefore, the second prince looked at Yuan Hotian anxiously. It's not impossible for Zhao Yun to be the army commander. It's just that Zhao Yun has not made any contributions. I'm worried that the soldiers will not be convinced. So, why not let him complete some missions and gain some merits before he becomes the army commander? It won't be too late. When the time comes, the soldiers will be convinced. Yuan Hotian said sincerely, but there was a sinister look in his eyes. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Yuan Hotian's words. They knew that Yuan Hotian would not easily agree to let Zhao Yun be the army commander. Therefore, they could not help but look forward to how Yuan Hotian would make things difficult for Zhao Yun. Chapter 1306. Let go of His Highness. Sun Wu shouted anxiously. However, when he saw Xia Haoshuan's cold glare and Zhao Yun and the others behind Xia Haoshuan, Sun Wu knew his place and did not dare to make a move. Let go of His Highness. The third Prince Han knew how powerful the husky was and shouted anxiously. If the third Prince Han's clothes were removed, he would be drenched in cold sweat. The third Prince Han had never felt that death was so close to him. He was really worried that the husky would kill him by mistake. Especially when he felt the powerful aura coming from the husky, it made him tremble in fear. Yi Hao handed the compensation contract to Zhao Yun. Zhao Yun took the contract and walked to the third Prince Han's side. Third Prince Han, please sign it. Zhao Yun's tone was sonorous and forceful, but one could not tell whether he was happy or sad. The third Prince Han wanted to refuse, but when he saw the husky on his chest, the image of Zhao Yun's powerful battle appeared in his mind. He did not dare to open his mouth to refuse. Okay, I'll sign it. The third Prince Han quickly took the compensation contract and signed his name on it. At the same time, he stamped his visiting seal. The third Prince Han is indeed straightforward. When he saw the third Prince Han sign the contract, Xia Haoshuan walked to the third Prince Han's side and picked up the husky. He then checked the contract. When the third Prince Han heard Xia Haoshuan's words, he was both embarrassed and angry. This was definitely the biggest humiliation he had ever suffered in his life. He had been thinking about how to negotiate with Xia Haoshuan to reduce the compensation to the minimum. Who would have thought that he would be forced to sign the contract before he even opened his mouth? Moreover, he absolutely could not tell anyone about this. After all, if he was defeated by a puppy and was so scared that he did not even dare to look at the contents of the contract before signing the compensation contract, how could he still have the face to live? However, when the third Prince Han saw the smile on Xia Haoshuan's face and the contract in Yi Hao's hands, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Just now, in a moment of panic, he seemed to have signed the contract without looking at the contents. If this was a huge sum of compensation, when he thought of this, a cold sweat appeared on the third Prince Han's head. Third Prince Han, let's go out first. Xia Haoshuan did not plan to show the third Prince Han the contract and walked out directly. After all, the contract had the third prince's signature, as well as the Grand Han's official seal. Even if the third Prince Han wanted to go back, it would be useless, unless the entire kingdom of Korea was shameless. As he watched Xia Haoshuan leave, the third Prince Han felt that he had fallen into a trap. His face turned pale. Your Highness, are you all right? When he saw Xia Haoshuan and the others leave, Sun Wu hurriedly helped the third Prince Han up. I don't want today's matter to spread, the third Prince Han said in a cold voice. Because just now, he had been defeated by the husky. It could be said that he had made a fool of himself. If this spread, it would be a fatal blow to his image. But Your Highness, do you know what was written on the contract? Sun Wu asked worriedly. When he heard Sun Wu's words, the third Prince Han's expression turned even uglier. This was also his concern. He had wanted to chase after Xia Haoshuan and see what was written on the contract. But when he thought of the mocking gazes of the people of Xia looking at him, he felt that he could not accept it. Let's go back to the relay station first and wait for Xia to send the contract of compensation. We'll know then. After the third Prince Han finished speaking, he patted the dust off his body and walked out of the courtyard. Sun Wu looked at the back of the third Prince Han and opened his mouth. In the end, he did not say anything and hurriedly followed. His Highness the Crown Prince is out so soon. Could it be that the discussion is already over? How is this possible? How can it be so fast? Everyone looked at Xia Haoshuan who had come out, their faces full of shock. One had to know that every year the discussion was incomparably intense. It would take at least 2 to 4 hours, and at most half a day. But Xia Haoshuan and the third Prince Han had not even left for a quarter of an hour. Don't tell me that the third Prince Han just casually offered some compensation and sent His Highness away. That's very possible. Sai, it seems like His Highness the Crown Prince has no experience in negotiations. Xia has probably suffered a great loss this time. Many people looked at Xia Haoshuan and said with regret. The second prince and the others looked at Xia Haoshuan, who had come out so quickly, and a mocking smile appeared on their faces. Humph, I thought he had some ability, but it seems like he's just SOSO. The second prince snorted coldly. One had to know that he had participated in the negotiation of de Xia's compensation to de Korea in the past. De Xia wanted to pay less resources, while de Korea wanted to ask for more resources. Those two countries had to argue for a long time before they could reach a conclusion. The second prince did not believe that the third Prince Han would be easy to talk to and would not bargain with Xia Haoshuan when he asked for compensation. Therefore, in his opinion, Xia Haoshuan could come out so early. There were only two possibilities. Either Xia Haoshuan offered very little compensation and made the third Prince Han agree, or Xia Haoshuan encountered a problem and came to ask for help. However, he reckoned that the latter possibility was more likely because the third Prince Han did not come over. He thought that he might still be waiting in the negotiation area. Seeing Xia Haoshuan come out so quickly, the 5 Grand Elders frowned and looked at Xia Haoshuan. What's the matter? Did something happen to Xia Haoshuan? Xia Nantian frowned and looked at Xia Haoshuan. He thought that Xia Haoshuan had encountered a problem. Although Wang Xingyu and the others did not care about how much resources de Korea had to pay, this was still related to Xia Haoshuan's reputation. After all, if Xia Haoshuan asked for very little compensation, Xia Haoshuan's reputation would be damaged, and he would be suppressed by the second prince. Therefore, Wang Xingyu and the others looked at Xia Haoshuan with concern. This kid has no negotiating experience. If I had known, I would have gone with him to take a look. Wang Xingyu said regretfully. Obviously, Wang Xingyu also thought that Xia Haoshuan's negotiation was not going well. Reporting to Imperial Father, I've finished my discussion with the third Prince Han. Xia Haoshuan looked at Xia Nantian with worry in his eyes and a warm feeling in his heart as he smiled. Haha, Imperial Brother's negotiation speed is actually so fast. It's really worth learning from. The second prince sneered and said in a strange tone. It sounded like a compliment, but it was actually full of mockery. Xia Nantian looked at the list in Xia Haoshuan's hands and said, "Bring it here and let me take a look." Eunuch Qi walked directly to Xia Haoshuan's side, took the list respectfully, and presented it to Xia Nantian. Xia Nantian glanced at Xia Haoshuan and began to read the contents of the list. Chapter 1307. Everyone was curious about what was written on the list that could cause Xia Nanshan's expression to change. When the second prince saw this scene, he sneered in his heart. He was already prepared to mock Xia Haoshuan later. The more Xia Nantian looked at the contents of the list, the more shocked he became. The list listed a huge amount of compensation. This was something he didn't even dare to imagine. This was far beyond his expectations. 10 billion copper coins, 1 billion silver coins, 100 million gold coins, 100,000 sets of weapons, 100,000 low-level body refinement realm pills, 3,000 low-level body refinement realm cultivation techniques, 300 Hodian realm cultivation techniques, 10 Xiantian realm cultivation techniques, 3 Lunmai realm cultivation techniques. Looking at the list of compensation listed one by one, Xiao Nantian felt like his heart was about to jump out his chest. Even he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He couldn't help but wonder how the third Prince Han would agree to such a huge amount of compensation. This was because he had expected the Grand Han to compensate 1 billion copper coins, 100 million silver coins, and 10 million gold coins. As for the rest, he hadn't even thought about it. And the compensation he had expected was what de Xia had compensated the Grand Han in the past. But now, The compensation on the list was more than 10 times more than what he had expected. As for the rest of the compensation, the value was immeasurable. The total value made Xian feel like the resources that Xia had compensated the Grand Han over the years were all paid back in one go. At this moment, he didn't even doubt the authenticity of the list. Xian also quickly looked at the third Prince Han's signature and visit seal. It's actually real. After Xian finished reading, he could tell whether it was real or fake with a single glance. Even Xian couldn't remain calm at this moment. His heart was filled with ecstasy. One had to know that every country had its own national fate, and the visiting seal contained the country's national fate. Xian could naturally tell that the seal on the list was the Grand Han's visit seal. The fate of the Grand Han kingdom on it couldn't be faked. Good. Xian looked at Xia Haoshuan and praised him generously, saying the word good 3 times in a row. Xian looked at Xia Haoshuan with gratification in his eyes. What? His Majesty actually praised the Crown Prince? Did I hear wrongly? Could it be that His Majesty is siding with the Crown Prince again? Or is it that the Grand Han's compensation really satisfied His Majesty? Everyone was surprised to see Xian reaction. In everyone's opinion, Xia Haoshuan had only been here for a short period of time. The amount of compensation that could be discussed with the Grand Han would definitely be pitifully small. It would be good enough if Xian didn't fly into a rage. How could it possibly make Xian so happy? Everyone looked at Xian with a puzzled expression. I wonder how much compensation the Crown Prince made the Grand Han sign to make His Majesty so happy. A trusted aide of the second prince stood up and asked respectfully, "Son of a bitch, even if Father is siding with you, I'd like to see how Father will cover up for you." At this moment, the second prince's expression was very cold. Clearly, in his opinion, Xian laughter was to favor Xia Haoshuan. But the list was there, and according to convention, it should be known to all the officials. He wanted to see how Xian would cover up for Xia Haoshuan. Xian looked at the official who spoke. When the official met Xian gaze, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and his body was instantly drenched in cold sweat. Although he was on the second prince's side, at this moment, he was still Xian official. The world was still Xian world. If Xian wanted him to live, he would live. If Xian wanted him to die, he would die. After all, he didn't want to be in the limelight either. But just now, when the second prince asked him to stand up, he had no choice but to stand up. After all, the second prince had a lot of information on him. If he didn't listen to the second prince, he would still die a terrible death. At this moment, he didn't dare to look Xian in the eye and hurriedly lowered his head in fear. But he couldn't stop the cold sweat from flowing down his body. "Lord Tan." Xian looked at the official who spoke and called out. When Tan Lizzie heard Xian call out to him, his heart trembled. He hurriedly said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Since Lord Tan is so curious, Lord Tan, how many resources will Xia be compensated by the Great Han? Please read it out for my beloved officials on my behalf, Xian continued. At this moment, Tan Lizzie's heart was filled with a myriad of thoughts. He knew that he wouldn't have a good time in the imperial court in the future. He could only pray that the second prince would give him a good place to go. When the second prince heard that Xian had actually agreed to announce the contents of the list, he was delighted. He was already prepared to see how Xia Haoshuan would make a fool of himself. Eunuch Qi took the list from Xian and handed it to Tan Lizzie. Tan Lizzie's hands trembled as he took the list. He carefully glanced at the second prince. When the second prince nodded, he opened the list. When Tan Lizzie saw the contents of the list, his eyes suddenly widened. His heart was in a state of shock. He couldn't believe that what he was seeing was real. How could the crown prince be so powerful? Tan Lizzie couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. He really didn't want to read the list at this moment, because he knew that if he did, it would definitely increase Xia Haoshuan's reputation. It would also be a fatal blow to the second prince. Lord Tan, why are you still standing there? The officials are still waiting for you. Seeing that Tan Lizzie wasn't reading the list for a long time, the second prince urged him happily. When Tan Lizzie heard the second prince's urging, his face turned even uglier. He believed that if he read the list, the smile on the second prince's face would immediately disappear. At this moment, he really wanted to tell the second prince that he couldn't read the list, but he couldn't do it. What are you still standing there for? The second prince urged him again. Obviously, he still thought that Lord Tan was afraid of Xianantian because he saw the content of the list. After all, Xianantian was very happy when he saw the content of the list. If the compensation on the list was very little, it would definitely damage Xianantian's reputation. If he wasn't careful, he would anger Xianantian. This was a crime punishable by death. However, at this moment, he couldn't care less about Tan Lizzie's life. As long as he could deal a blow to Xia Haoshuan, losing an unimportant official was nothing to him. He didn't know that Tan Lizzie didn't want to read the list because of him. When Tan Lizzie heard the second prince's urging, he directly said, Dahan will compensate the Xia's resources in copper coins. Copper coins. Chapter 1308. When the second prince saw that Tan Lizzie was hesitating to speak, he frowned and looked displeased. One of the officials saw that the second prince was impatient and looked displeased. So he quickly said, Lord Tan, please read it out. Tan Lizzie took a deep breath and continued. The kingdom of Han will compensate the Xia with 10 billion copper coins. What? 10 billion? Hiss! When everyone heard Tan Lizzie's words, they were all shocked and gasped at the same time. Oh my God, did I hear wrongly? Is this for real? How could the kingdom of Han be willing to pay 10 billion copper coins? Lord Tan must have seen wrongly. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and disbelief. That was because 10 billion copper coins was equivalent to at least a year's worth of taxes for a state. In the past, the Xia had only compensated the kingdom of Han with this amount of resources. They couldn't understand how the kingdom of Han could be so generous and agree to this amount of compensation in such a short period of time. In the past, the Xia had to negotiate for half a day before compensating the kingdom of Han, hoping to reduce the compensation by a little. How did the crown prince do it? Many people looked at Xia Haoshuan curiously. This is impossible. How did he do it? How could the kingdom of Han compensate so much? The cold smile on the second prince's face instantly turned serious and ugly. While everyone was still in shock, Tan Lizzie didn't stop there. He continued to read the list. 1 billion silver coins, 100 million gold coins, 100,000 sets of weapons, 100,000 low-level body, refinement realm pills, 3,000 low-level body, refinement realm cultivation manuals, 300 Hotian realm cultivation manuals, 10 Xiantian realm cultivation manuals, 3 Lunmai realm cultivation manuals. Silence. The entire place was dead silent. Everyone was so shocked that their mouths were wide open. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. The list of compensation was simply too frightening. Every time Tan Lizzie read out an item, everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. How did the crown prince do it? Oh my God, the compensation this time will probably make Korea cough up all the resources that the Xia has taken from them over the years. Oh my God, I'm not dreaming, am I? That prince of the Grand Han Kingdom actually agreed to such a huge compensation. Could it be that His Highness the Crown Prince used some sort of drug on him? After a while, everyone began to discuss in shock. After hearing Tan Lizzie's words and hearing the discussions around them, the second prince's men recovered from their shock, and their expressions turned extremely ugly. The reason for that was because they were all prepared to ridicule Xia Haoshuan. But at this moment, how could they laugh? Unless their brains were damaged. And this matter would definitely cause Xia Haoshuan's reputation to be greatly improved. This was definitely disadvantageous to the second prince. At this moment, many people began to regret betraying Xia Haoshuan and joining the second prince's camp. After all, ever since Xia Haoshuan had regained his status as a prince, the shock he had brought to them had never stopped. They all wondered if Xia Haoshuan had changed into a different person. If Xia Haoshuan had once been Xia's genius, they now realized that they couldn't see through Xia Haoshuan at all. Impossible. It's fake. This contract is fake. It's definitely fake. The second prince shook his head repeatedly as he roared. What kind of joke was this? The resources that Xia Haoshuan had asked for were simply too frightening. This was completely different from what he had imagined. Even if it had been him who had negotiated with the third Prince Han, he would have felt that getting 10 billion copper coins for Xia would have been very good. But Xia Haoshuan had practically asked for back all the resources that Xia had compensated to Xia over the years. In his opinion, even if the third Prince Han had gone crazy, he wouldn't have signed such a compensation contract. Upon hearing the second prince's words, the eyes of the officials in the second prince's camp lit up. In their hearts, they were also hoping that this contract was fake. After all, if this contract was real, then Xia Haoshuan would have made an unparalleled contribution to Xia, and his reputation would soar. This would definitely be a huge blow to the second prince. However, if the contract turned out to be fake, then Xia Haoshuan would be accused of deceiving the emperor. Moreover, they were also a little doubtful about the authenticity of this contract. After all, the amount of resources that had to be compensated in this contract was truly frightening. In their opinion, unless the third Prince Han's brain was damaged, he wouldn't have signed such a contract. After all, to compensate so many resources at once, even the Grand Han Kingdom would have to suffer a huge loss. But when everyone saw Tan Lizzie's signature and seal at the bottom of the contract, it was as if they had swallowed a fly and were speechless. Even if they said that the third Prince Han's signature was fake, they couldn't possibly say that the seal that contained the fate of the Xia Kingdom was also fake, right? How terrifying. At this moment, everyone simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, everyone was looking at Xia Haoshuan with shock in their eyes. Not to mention anything else. Just this contract alone was probably something that no one else present besides Xia Haoshuan would dare to say that they could do. How did he do it? Countless people were looking at Xia Haoshuan with shock on their faces. Even the second prince was so shocked at this moment that he was speechless. I wonder if second brother is satisfied with the negotiations this time? Xia Haoshuan looked at the second prince and asked softly. When the second prince heard Xia Haoshuan's words, his face was incomparably red. After all, the contract in Tan Lizzie's hand was like a ruthless slap to his face. Seeing that the second prince didn't say anything, Xia Haoshuan sneered and swept his gaze over the ministers behind the second prince. Your Highness, I'll just ask, who else is not satisfied with this contract? When they heard Xia Haoshuan's words, the ministers in the second prince's camp all hurriedly lowered their heads. This was because Xia Haoshuan's aura was too strong at this moment, and they simply couldn't resist thinking about it. At first, they had wanted to see Xia Haoshuan make a fool of himself. But now, Xia Haoshuan had directly used the contract to give all of them a ruthless slap in the face. Your Highness, well done. Fierce Tiger King couldn't help but praise. I really didn't expect this kid to have such a negotiation method. Wang Xingyu was also secretly shocked. At the beginning, he had been worried about Xia Haoshuan. Now, it seemed that his worries were all for nothing. Although your Highness has never negotiated before, I'm guessing that you've read a lot of books on negotiation in your daily life. That's why the Grand Han was so willing to compensate you with so many resources. Fang Tu also speculated. If the third Prince Han knew what Wang Xingyu and Fang Tu were thinking, who knew if he would vomit blood in anger? Chapter 1309. I wonder how my son negotiated with the third Prince Han? Xiaonan Tian could see the shocked expressions on the faces of countless citizens. A sense of pride welled up in his heart. Although he was an emperor, he was also a father, who said that he was heartless to the royal family. He would also feel proud of his son. However, he was also very curious as to how Xia Haoshuan had negotiated and gotten the Han to compensate him with so many resources. This would definitely be recorded in the annals of the Xia dynasty for future generations to admire and learn from. Your son moved the third Prince Han with emotion and reason. Finally, after a deep discussion with the third Prince Han, the third Prince Han willingly signed this contract. Xia Haoshuan said with a smile, his face full of seriousness. When they heard Xia Haoshuan's words, the corners of Zhao Yun and the others' mouths twitched uncontrollably. They knew what had happened. The third Prince Han had only signed a contract because he had fallen into Xia Haoshuan's trap. At the same time, his life had also been threatened. How could he have moved the third prince with emotion and reason? Although Zhao Yun and the others knew the truth of the matter, the rest of the people naturally believed it when they saw Xia Haoshuan's serious expression. Many people couldn't help but imagine Xia Haoshuan arguing with the third Prince Han and persuading the third Prince Han. Many people's admiration for Xia Haoshuan rose spontaneously. Haha, my son has done well. I will reward him handsomely, Xia Nantian said happily. After thinking for a moment, Xia Nantian made a solemn decision and said, pass down my decree. Crown Prince Xia Haoshuan will be the young emperor. What? Everyone was shocked when they heard Xia Nantian's words. Young emperor? What was a young emperor? The status of the young emperor had already surpassed that of the crown prince. Even if Xia Nantian did not abdicate, Xia Haoshuan could still exercise the authority of the emperor. In other words, Xia Haoshuan's status was on the same level as Xia Nantian's. How could everyone not be shocked? As for the position of crown prince, Xia Nantian could still abolish it. However, even Xia Nantian did not have the right to depose the young emperor. That would require the 5 grand elders and Xia's ministers to make a joint decision. It could be said that a young emperor held a transcendent position in a country. However, the emperors of many countries would not confer the title of young emperor, because this position was too important. Unless the emperor had already confirmed the next emperor and trusted the next emperor completely, only then would he confer the title. After all, imperial power was extremely tempting. Throughout history, there had been many cases where one's father had been killed to seize power. If Xia Haoshuan really became the young emperor, then Xia Haoshuan's position would be unshakable. He would be able to command all the civil and military officials. Your Majesty, please reconsider. The position of young emperor is no small matter. Isn't it too hasty to make a decision now? Yuan Hodian spoke up before the second prince could speak. Although Xia Haoshuan was the crown prince now, Yuan Hodian did not fear him. After all, he did not have to listen to Xia Haoshuan's orders. However, if Xia Haoshuan became the young emperor, then even Yuan Hodian would have to obey Xia Haoshuan's orders. Therefore, this was something he did not want to see. If Xia Haoshuan became the young emperor, then the second prince's future would be very difficult. Your Majesty, please reconsider. The officials in the second prince's camp all spoke up to stop him. The crown prince is a dragon among men. This time, he has made great contributions to the Xia. Since your Majesty has conferred the title, the crown prince should become the young emperor. What reason do you have to stop him? Lord Fierce Tiger stood up and shouted, Your Majesty is wise. I am wholeheartedly convinced that the crown prince will become the young emperor. Fong Tu also hurriedly stood up and said. However, deep down, he was also extremely shocked by Xia Nantian's decision. He had not expected that Xia Nantian would actually give the position of young emperor to Xia Haoshuan. This most likely meant that Xia Haoshuan would be the ruler of the Xia in the future. With such an opportunity, he naturally had to hug Xia Haoshuan's thigh and seek a way out for the Fong family. Therefore, he did not hesitate to agree with Xia Nantian's decision. No one had expected Wang Xingyu and the other two to stand up at this time. However, the crowd was relieved because Wang Xingyu and the other two had supported Xia Haoshuan in the first place. This made some officials who were originally neutral stand up and say, We also agree with your Majesty's decision. The reason why these neutral officials were still neutral was that they were still observing which camp they would take. After all, their future prospects and development had a lot to do with which camp they chose in advance. Xia Haoshuan's actions today naturally made many people think highly of Xia Haoshuan again. If Xia Haoshuan really became the young emperor, it was certain that he would become the emperor in the future. Now that they had stood up for Xia Haoshuan, it would naturally make a good impression on Xia Haoshuan. Therefore, if they did not stand up now, when would they stand up again? Your Majesty is wise. At this moment, many of Xia citizens who were watching also knelt down and said, Xia Haoshuan had allowed Xia to defeat the Great Han, reclaim the lost land of the South region, and obtain such a huge compensation. This had allowed Xia to vent his anger. Therefore, Xia Haoshuan had attracted countless admirers, who all stood up to support Xia Haoshuan. When he saw this scene, the second prince's expression turned even uglier. At this moment, he finally felt real pressure from Xia Haoshuan. One had to know that Xia Haoshuan was nothing in his eyes before this. Previously, he had been able to make Xia Haoshuan lose everything. He believed that he could do the same this time. However, at this moment, he realized that the current Xia Haoshuan seemed to be a completely different person from the previous Xia Haoshuan, who only knew how to cultivate and was not scheming. If Xia Haoshuan could cultivate again, the second prince could take it that Xia Haoshuan had encountered a good opportunity. However, Xia Haoshuan still could not be compared to the second prince. After all, becoming the emperor was not something that could be done alone. It required the support of others. The second prince felt that Xia Haoshuan could not compare to him when he had the support of Yuan Hotian and the other officials. However, in such a short period of time, Xia Haoshuan had actually won the support of so many people in such a short period of time. This made him a little flustered. No, I must not let him become the young emperor. The second prince roared in his heart. This was because if Xia Haoshuan became the young emperor, all his plans would be disrupted. Furthermore, it would pose a fatal threat to him. I have made up my mind. No one can object. Xia Nantian exuded a powerful aura as he spoke. Xia Nantian was the emperor of the Xia. The aura that he had cultivated over a long period of time was not something that many people could resist. Chapter 13:10. But Fierce Tiger King wanted to say something, but when he saw Xia Haoshuan's resolute gaze, he did not stop him. Do you need me to send some people to follow Zhao Yun? No need. I plan to go with Zhao Yun. Xia Haoshuan directly stated his plan. What? Your Highness, you mustn't. The Black Dragon sect is undoubtedly a tiger's den. Your Highness, you mustn't go. That's right. Your Highness, this matter must be discussed again. When the three of them heard Xia Haoshuan's words, they immediately spoke up to stop him. What a joke. What kind of place was the Black Dragon sect? That was a place that even they did not dare to casually set foot in. Now that Xia Haoshuan wanted to go to the Black Dragon sect, in their opinion, it was absolutely dangerous. Of course, they would not agree. The concern and worry in their eyes warmed Xia Haoshuan's heart once again, who said that he had no support into Xia. With these three people, Xia Haoshuan felt that he had half of the country. Moreover, he was an orphan in his previous life. In this life, he finally felt how wonderful it was to be cared for by others. This gave Xia Haoshuan a new sense of conviction in his heart. He would work hard to become stronger and protect those who cared about him and those who cared about him. Grandfather, Uncle, General Fong. How can an eagle soar in the sky without experiencing wind and rain? Xia Haoshuan looked at the three of them with a resolute gaze. When the three of them saw Xia Haoshuan's resolute gaze, they suddenly did not know whether they should stop him or not. Xia Haoshuan was right. The strong grew in adversity and were destroyed in comfort. However, the Black Dragon sect was really too dangerous. They were really worried. Don't worry. I will definitely go to the Black Dragon sect if I have the confidence. Besides, I'm not stupid enough to throw my life away. Xia Haoshuan continued without waiting for the three of them to speak. The three of them looked at each other. Wang Xingyu said, All right then. Your Highness, you must act according to your ability. Don't try to be brave. Xia Haoshuan nodded. Then, Your Highness, when do we depart? Fierce Tiger King inquired. Let's go now. Xia Haoshuan said with a smile. So hasty. The three of them were shocked when they heard Xia Haoshuan's words. I want to catch the Black Dragon sect off guard. After all, someone will definitely notify the Black Dragon sect in advance, so that they could be prepared. After Xia Haoshuan finished speaking, he couldn't help but look towards the second prince's palace. Now that he had become the young emperor, there was no way the second prince would let it go. If the second prince wanted to deal with him, he would have to deal with Zhao Yun first. Therefore, he guessed that in order to kill Zhao Yun, the second prince would definitely need the help of the Black Dragon sect. His Highness means that they will inform the Black Dragon sect. When Wang Xingyu heard Xia Haoshuan's words, he followed Xia Haoshuan's gaze and looked over. Suddenly, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. Most likely, Xia Haoshuan knew the second prince's character very well. In order to deal with him, the second prince would definitely do anything. If it weren't for Xia Nanshan's feelings and the lack of conclusive evidence, he would have slapped the second prince to death. Now, it was up to the second prince himself. If the second prince continued to court death, then he couldn't be blamed for being ruthless. Grandfather, royal uncle, Marshal Fong, I still have some matters to attend to. Once I'm done, I'll head straight to the Black Dragon sect, Xia Haoshuan said without waiting for the three of them to speak. This was because he knew that if he continued speaking, the three of them might stop him again. In a quiet corner, Wu Song and son Shangxiang bowed respectfully to Xia Haoshuan. Greetings, Your Highness. How are things going? Xia Haoshuan looked at the two of them and asked. The two of us already have some trusted subordinates in the Dark Guards Alliance. At the same time, we've completed a few missions and are starting to make a name for ourselves. It won't be long before we attract the second prince's attention, Wu Song said. Well done. I want the two of you to take over the entire Dark Guard Alliance in the shortest time possible. Can you do that? Xia Haoshuan asked in a low voice. It shouldn't be a problem. It's just that the head of the Dark Guards has many trusted subordinates in the Dark Guards Alliance that will affect our movements. I'm worried that if we make too big of a move, it will arouse the head of the Dark Guard suspicion. Wu Song continued. Then kill him. Do it cleanly. Xia Haoshuan's voice was cold and filled with murderous intent. What he wanted to do now was to make the second prince lose everything. In Xia Haoshuan's opinion, killing the second prince will be letting him off too easily given what he had done to him. And there was a better way to deal with such people. That was to make them climb even higher. Because sometimes the higher a person climbed, the worse it would be for them when they fell. Xia Haoshuan looked forward to the day when the second prince found out that the Dark Guard Alliance that he had worked so hard to establish no longer belonged to him. What would his expression be? Yes. The two of them nodded, looking delighted, because what they wanted was Xia Haoshuan's answer. They had long wanted to get rid of some stumbling blocks, but without Xia Haoshuan's orders, they couldn't do it. Xia Haoshuan waved at the two of them, and the two of them immediately turned and left. The show has just begun. Xia Haoshuan's lips curled into a cold smile. My good brother, you were the one who kept attacking previously. Now it's time for me to retaliate. I hope you're not too weak. Then, Xia Haoshuan's figure disappeared into the night. What did you say? Xia Haoshuan left the imperial city overnight with Zhao Yun. The second prince was delighted when he received the report from his subordinate early in the morning. Your Highness, what's made you so happy? At that moment, Yuan Hodian walked in through the door. Uncle, that good-for-nothing left the imperial city overnight with Zhao Yun. The second prince said with a smile. What? That kid can't be thinking of going to the Black Dragon sect too, right? Yuan Hodian hadn't expected this and was shocked when he heard the news. That's very likely. Uncle, this is a great opportunity. The second prince looked at Yuan Hodian excitedly. I also didn't expect that kid to seek his own death. Since he dared to leave the imperial city, he can forget about coming back. Yuan Hotian's eyes were bloodthirsty. I'll send someone to the Black Dragon sect, right away. Yuan Hotian said, and left without waiting for the second prince's response. Uncle is still as swift and decisive as ever. As he watched Yuan Hotian's back, the second prince smiled again. This was because he felt that his spring had arrived once again. As long as Xia Haoshuan died in the Black Dragon sect, the Xia's world would still belong to him. At that moment, the third Prince Han was drinking alone in a relay station. Sun Wu walked in with an ugly expression on his face, holding the contract in his hands. Chapter 13:13. When he received the contract, he couldn't help but take a look at it. When he saw the compensation, he was shocked. Is there a lot of compensation? Seeing Sun Wu's expression, the third Prince Han frowned and asked with a sullen expression. Ever since he signed the contract, he had been feeling uneasy. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. Therefore, he guessed that there would be a lot of compensation in the contract. This time, he reckoned that he had been ripped off by Xia Haoshuan. A lot, it's not just a lot. It's an astronomical figure. Sun Wu roared in his heart. However, he didn't dare to say anything. Instead, he carefully placed the contract in front of the third Prince Han. Your Highness, please calm down. When the third Prince Han saw Sun Wu's reaction, he put down the wine glass in his hand and picked up the contract. When his gaze fell on the contract, his eyes were filled with boundless anger. The third Prince Han was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bam! The third Prince Han slammed the contract on the table and roared through gritted teeth, Xia Haoshuan, I'm not done with you. We won't rest until one of us is dead. Sun Wu wasn't surprised to see the third Prince Han like this. After all, the compensation was an astronomical figure. Originally, the third Prince Han had come to the Xia to humiliate the Xia and asked for a large sum of compensation to increase his reputation. In fact, he had come to the Xia to gild his reputation. As long as everything went smoothly, the third Prince Han would be able to become the crown prince and stabilize his position. However, things didn't go as planned. Not only did the third Prince Han lose the competition, but he also lost 2 Luan Mai powerhouses. Now, he had signed such a huge compensation contract for the Han. Without a doubt, no matter how much Emperor Han favored the third Prince Han, the third Prince Han couldn't escape the blame this time. His status might even plummet. This would provide an opportunity for the other princes to deal with the third Prince Han. Simply put, the damage that Xia Haoshuan had done to the third Prince Han was absolutely fatal. Your Highness, please calm down. I have a piece of news. Who knows, we might be able to kill Xia Haoshuan. At this moment, Sun Wu suddenly thought of something and said, What news? The third Prince Han urged as soon as he heard that he might be able to kill Xia Haoshuan. I heard that Xia Haoshuan left the Imperial City last night. Sun Wu continued. Why did he leave the Imperial City? Third Prince Han frowned again. Why? Sun Wu Haoshuan? Haoshuan's teat. So you're saying that Xia Haoshuan might go to the Black Dragon sect? Third Prince Han's eyes lit up as he spoke. Even though he was a citizen of the Grand Han Kingdom, he had still heard of the Black Dragon sect. I'm not sure, but it's very likely, Sun Wu said. Huh. Even the heavens are on my side. If Xia Haoshuan is really courting death by heading to the Black Dragon sect, I'll make sure he never comes back. The third Prince Han wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and beamed. 5 days later, in the palaces of the 5 Grand Elders. What did you say, little fellow? That little brat is heading to the Black Dragon sect. The Grand Elder looked at Xia Nentian worriedly. I came to report as soon as I received the news from the auxiliary city. Xia Nentian looked at the Grand Elder and said cautiously, Fool! The Grand Elder shouted. That brat is to Xia's hope. He has to grow up. Nothing can happen to him. Don't you know that his life will be in danger if he heads to the Black Dragon sect? I didn't think that Xianer would head to the Black Dragon sect either. I didn't pay much attention to him when he was playing in the auxiliary city for 5 days. Who would have thought that he would suddenly use the transportation formation today? However, I believe that Xian has his own plans and won't be too rash. Xianantian said, Forget it. Let's not talk about this for now. Open the transportation formation for me. I'll stop that brat. The Grand Elder said hurriedly. The other Grand Elders also had worried and anxious looks on their faces. After all, they saw the hope of the Xia's rise in Xia Haoshuan. Naturally, they couldn't see Xia Haoshuan in any danger. Therefore, when they heard that Xia Haoshuan was heading to the Black Dragon sect, which was a dangerous place, how could they not be worried? Grand Elders, our transportation formation can only be used once every half a month. Xian has already used it. I don't think we can use it for the next half a month, Xiaonan Tian said when he heard the Grand Elder's words. If we help him for a month, it will be too late. The Grand Elder frowned and made up his mind. Old Third, Old Fifth, follow me to the Black Dragon sect. Yes. The Third and Fifth Grand Elders could see the grave expression on the Grand Elder's face and knew that this was no small matter. Thus, they nodded at the same time. Grand Elders, are we going to rush over? Even if the three of you are faster than ordinary people, it will still take you 2 or 3 days to reach the Black Dragon sect. Xiaonan Tian was shocked when he heard the Grand Elder's words. We can't care about that anymore, the Grand Elder said before he sped off. The Third Grand Elder and the Fifth Grand Elder quickly followed. Nantian, why are you so muddle-headed this time? I hope nothing happens to that kid. Otherwise, you will suffer. Do you know how much the Grand Elder values that kid? The Second and Fourth Grand Elders said as they looked at Xia Nantian. Xia Nantian's mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. Actually, deep down, he still chose to believe that Xia Haoshuan wouldn't act rashly. The fact that Xia Haoshuan had dared to go to the Black Dragon sect meant that Xia Haoshuan was really confident. Xian don't let me down. Xia Nantian couldn't help but hope. Phew. So this is the teleportation portal. Xia Haoshuan stepped into the teleportation portal. He felt as if his eyes were being blinded by the white light. His head felt a little dizzy. Before long, he realized that he had already left the imperial capital auxiliary city. Into Xia. Because some counties were far away, teleportation portals were carved between the imperial capital and the imperial capital for the purpose of transmitting emergency messages. As the name suggested, teleportation portals were used to teleport people from one place to another by relying on the array formation. Most of the teleportation portals into Xia's imperial capital were carved in the auxiliary city. After all, the imperial capital was an important place. Therefore, there was a need to worry that someone would snatch the teleportation portals in the auxiliary city and teleport to the Xia Empire, which would bring about negative consequences. Therefore, building the teleportation portals in the auxiliary city could reduce a lot of trouble. Greetings, sirs. May I know who the two of you are? Right after Xia Haoshuan exited the teleportation formation, a middle-aged man hurriedly ran over and asked respectfully, what happened? Chapter 13-14. Whoosh. In an instant, the entire army knelt down obediently without hesitation. After all, they had seen how powerful Su Lai and Yu Ganglai were. Even the Yufeng Emperor, the 10 great ghost generals, the 10th Third Prince, and the left Prince Consort were killed instantly. At this moment, the Crown Prince knelt down in front of Yi Hao and handed over the Imperial Jade Seal. They did not dare to disobey Yi Hao. You guys come over here. Yi Hao glanced at the crowd and saw a few generals with decent strength and said, the generals did not expect Yi Hao to call for them at this moment. This caused their hearts to jump to their throats in an instant. Sir, please spare our lives. The few of them scrambled to Yi Hao's side and hurriedly begged for mercy. They were afraid that they had offended Yi Hao and angered Yi Hao. Don't be nervous. Don't resist, Yi Hao said, and used the earth termination black gas on them to control them. After all, it was too troublesome to pick new people to control the army in front of him. Therefore, he might as well control these generals and make them work for him. They were confused and did not understand what Yi Hao had done. Come on, let's go in. Yi Hao no longer cared about these people and directly walked into the imperial city. He left behind a group of soldiers who were at a loss. The moment Yi Hao left, he saw the confused generals rolling on the ground in pain. When the Crown Prince saw this, he could not help but turn around to take a look. What did he do to them? The Crown Prince felt a chill run down his spine when he saw the generals in pain. Your lives are in my hands. If you want to live, you'd better listen to my orders. At this moment, Yi Hao's voice sounded in the generals' minds. After Yi Hao's voice disappeared, the generals felt the pain of death disappear. They looked at Yi Hao's back with fear in their eyes. Obviously, that excruciating pain had left a deep impression on them that could not be erased. The generals looked at each other and quickly kowtowed to Yi Hao's back. "My lord, these are all the spirit coins in the imperial city of the Yufeng dynasty." Of course, most of the spirit coins in the Yufeng dynasty are not in the imperial city. If my lord wants more, I can continue to collect them. The crown prince handed over 10 interspatial rings filled with spirit coins. The number of spirit coins was in the hundreds of millions. To be honest, the crown prince's heart ached to hand over these spirit coins. After all, these were the wealth that the Yufeng dynasty had accumulated over many years. But now it was emptied out. The Yufeng dynasty's treasury was of Yufeng dynasty's spirit coins. However, he didn't dare to disobey Yi Hao's orders. He obediently handed over all the spirit coins to Yi Hao. Yi Hao took all the spirit coins. After taking a look, he nodded with satisfaction. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. As expected of a dynasty that was about to become an empire, the wealth and resources they had were indeed incomparably abundant. It should be known that when Yi Hao destroyed the Fire Beacon dynasty, he also collected all of the Fire Beacon dynasty's spirit coins. However, the number of spirit coins was not even 1/3 of the interspatial rings. Therefore, this indirectly proved that, even if they were from the same dynasty, there was still a huge gap between them. "My lord, these are the spirit herbs that you need. Most of them are stored in the imperial city's treasury. Qin daylily grass, dragon gold grass, illusory heart vine, nine-tailed dragon sunflower, zoysia bloodgrass. There are not many of these spirit herbs in the imperial city's treasury." The crown prince looked at Yi Hao and said cautiously. He was afraid that Yi Hao would punish him. Evidently, at this moment, his fear towards Yi Hao had already reached its peak. Yi Hao took the 2 interspatial rings. After checking, he found that the Yufeng dynasty still had most of the spirit herbs. Most of the spirit herbs were in the tens of thousands. This caused Yi Hao to nod his head in satisfaction. This was because these spiritual herbs were enough to support him in raising his alchemist level. As for the other interspatial ring, it contained some precious spirit herbs. Most of them were the spirit herbs needed to refine the spirit heaven realm leveling pill. Of course, there were some that Yi Hao estimated were precious spirit herbs used to deceive others. However, the number of these spirit herbs was pitifully small. The most was Qin daylily grass. There were more than 200 of them. As for the rest, there were more than 100 of them. As for the most precious illusory heart vine and nine-tailed dragon sunflower, there were even fewer of them. There were only a dozen of them. This made Yi Hao frown. It seemed that it was as Yu Ganglai had said, that he had to go to the 3rd and 3rd rank empires to search for spirit herbs. Otherwise, with these spirit herbs in front of him, even if he successfully refined all of them into spirit heaven realm leveling pills, there would only be a few dozen of them. This was under the condition that his luck was good. Otherwise, it would be difficult to refine even a few dozen of them. When the crown prince saw Yi Hao frown, he panicked. He thought that Yi Hao was not satisfied with the number of spirit herbs. The crown prince hurriedly said, "My lord, some of these spirit herbs are too precious. The Yufeng dynasty does not have such powerful alchemists, so we did not store so many spirit herbs." "It's fine. You did well." When Yi Hao heard the crown prince's words, he waved his hand nonchalantly. He knew that the crown prince was right. Even Elder Yin's mutant city specialized in refining pills. Even Elder Yin did not have these spirit herbs. For the Yufeng dynasty to be able to produce these spirit herbs, it was a good harvest for him. "Don't resist." Yi Hao looked at the crown prince and said, "Yes." The crown prince knew that in order to survive, he could only obey Yi Hao's orders unconditionally. Soon, Yi Hao finished using the secret technique on the crown prince. From now on, the Yufeng dynasty is no more. It will be merged into the Tianyuan Empire. Perform well, and I will not treat you unfairly." Yi Hao said to the crown prince. "Me? The Tianyuan Empire?" When the crown prince heard Yi Hao's words, he was first stunned and then shocked. Could my lord be the new emperor of the empire? The crown prince looked at Yi Hao and asked in shock. He knew that Yi Hao was related to the new empire. However, he would never have thought that Yi Hao was the new emperor of the empire. This was because he couldn't believe that the emperor who had suddenly risen to power was so young. That's right. Yi Hao nodded and said, My lord, I have no objections to the Yufeng dynasty merging into the Tianyuan Empire, but the crown prince looked troubled. Chapter 13:15. Black Dragon looked at Xia Haoshuan in the crowd and immediately asked. Because Xia Haoshuan's clothes were different, he could naturally tell that Xia Haoshuan's identity was not ordinary. At this moment, his face was filled with anger. He did not expect to receive news that someone was attacking the Black Dragon sect. He immediately rushed over with his men. But what he did not expect was that Xia Haoshuan's speed was so fast. He had actually reached the fourth mountain of the Black Dragon sect. And at this moment, the people on the fourth mountain were almost all slaughtered. One had to know that there were quite a number of disciples on each of his mountains. There were at least 2,000 people on each mountain. In other words, he had lost 8,000 to 9,000 people in a short period of time. This made his heart bleed. How could he not be angry? One must know that last time, Yuan Hodian had come with 3,000 elites. He had led his men and blocked Yuan Hotian outside the sect, not even giving him the chance to step into the Black Dragon sect. But now Xia Haoshuan had actually fought his way to the fourth mountain peak without a word, and only then did he rush over. This was definitely the biggest loss he had ever suffered in history. This is to Xia's crown prince, Xia Haoshuan. Zhao Yun directly answered when he heard Black Dragon's question. What, it's you? Black Dragon's eyes narrowed. Why are you here so quickly? Didn't you come 3 days later? Black Dragon did not believe that his subordinate would lie to him. Isn't that because you are too stupid? Xia Haoshuan could not help but chuckle when he heard Black Dragon's words. However, Xia Haoshuan had no intention of stopping his killing of the Black Dragon sect's disciples. Impudent. A mere child dares to insult the sect master. You are courting death. One of the protectors was furious when he heard Xia Haoshuan's words. He activated his martial skill and was about to attack Xia Haoshuan. Wind slash. How is this possible? But the moment the deacon activated his martial skill, his expression changed drastically. Because he didn't use his spiritual power, he didn't realize that the spiritual power in his body had decreased by more than half. What's wrong? Why aren't you doing anything? Black Dragon shouted in dissatisfaction when he saw the deacon's expression. Sect leader, I feel like I've lost more than half of my strength. The protector said in a panic. How is this possible? Black Dragon frowned. Not good, Sect Master. I can't feel the power in my body. I can feel it too. My power has been greatly reduced. What the hell? How could this be? And at this moment, many people looked anxiously at Black Dragon. The Black Dragon wasn't stupid. It naturally sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly mobilized its spiritual energy. He discovered that although his spiritual power wasn't as bad as the others, it was indeed much weaker. What the hell is going on? Black Dragon was starting to panic. Isn't it a little too late to realize it now? Xia Haoshuan chuckled when he saw Black Dragon's expression. It's you. When Black Dragon heard Xia Haoshuan's words, he immediately roared. What kind of trick are you playing? If you want to know, go to hell and ask. Zhao Yun, do it. Xia Haoshuan ordered Zhao Yun. As the saying goes, to catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Since Black Dragon had appeared, he naturally had to be killed first. Yes. When Zhao Yun heard Xia Haoshuan's order, he immediately charged at Black Dragon. You're courting death. I'll kill you first, then capture that kid and interrogate him properly. Black Dragon snorted when he saw Zhao Yun charging at him. Although his strength had decreased, it was clear that he still didn't put Zhao Yun in his eyes. This was because in his eyes, other than the patriarch of the Xia, he probably didn't care about anyone else. Black Dragon slash. Black Dragon immediately used his superior yellow-ranked martial skill. One had to know that Black Dragon's martial skill was definitely one of the top martial skills in Xia. This was because yellow-ranked martial skills were divided into 3 grades: superior, intermediate, and inferior. As for the superior martial skills above the superior grade, they were extremely rare. And when a martial artist had the support of a martial skill, their strength would also increase greatly. Of course, the higher the grade of the martial skill, the more powerful it would be. It's actually a superior yellow-ranked martial skill, and it's at least at the Mahayana realm. Wu Yuqi exclaimed when she saw Black Dragon's martial skill. At the same time, she was worried for Zhao Yun. One had to know that as one's proficiency level increased, martial skills would be divided into 4 grades: inferior, intermediate, Mahayana, and dream realization. As one's proficiency level increased, their power would also increase. At this moment, Black Dragon was using a superior yellow-ranked martial skill, and his proficiency level had reached the Mahayana realm. It definitely wasn't someone that ordinary opponents of the same level could deal with. Unless Zhao Yun was stronger than Black Dragon, or had a cultivation technique stronger than Black Dragon's, he wouldn't be a match for Black Dragon. Sect Master is mighty. Sect Master killed him. When the Black Dragon sect saw Black Dragon attack, they all shouted excitedly. This was because in their eyes, Black Dragon was definitely an invincible existence. So in their eyes, Black Dragon killing Zhao Yun was a piece of cake. When Zhao Yun saw Black Dragon's attack, his eyes narrowed. He didn't dare to underestimate it and shouted, "Brilliant silver spear!" Then, Zhao Yun's Courage of Dragon's silver spear emitted a terrifying aura. In an instant, countless silhouettes of the spear appeared, emitting a dazzling light. Heavens! What grade of martial skill is this? Superior yellow-ranked? And it's even superior yellow-ranked? Wu Yuqi was stunned when she saw Zhao Yun's martial skill. At this moment, she realized that even with her experience, she couldn't see the grade of Zhao Yun's martial skill. She couldn't even see the proficiency level of Zhao Yun's martial skill. It seemed to have surpassed the Mahayana realm and even reached the peak of the Mahayana realm, but there was something different about it. How could Wu Yuqi know that Zhao Yun's martial skill was a heavenly fate martial skill that was bestowed by the system? The grade of Zhao Yun's martial skill wasn't limited to that grade, and it would increase as Zhao Yun's strength increased. It was not like normal martial techniques. As the cultivator's cultivation increased, they would become of little value and would not be of any use. Moreover, because this martial skill was innate, Zhao Yun's proficiency in it had already surpassed the peak of the Mahayana realm. Instead, it had reached the legendary level of perfection, which was even higher than the peak of the Mahayana realm. For ordinary people, it would take years or even decades to cultivate a martial skill to the Mahayana realm, let alone the peak of the Mahayana realm. That was even more difficult. As for cultivating a martial skill to the Mahayana realm, it didn't just require time and talent. It also required a certain amount of luck. Therefore, those who could cultivate a martial skill to the Mahayana realm were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Bang! You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.